You're starting now?
Yes, I'm starting now.
'Twas Brillig and the Slithy Toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe.
We're
All
all
mimsy were the Borogoves and the Momraths outgrabe. You don't like Lewis Carroll?
I like Lewis Carroll just fine. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the RetroBlasting live stream. This is Lockdown live stream number 2. We normally do this every other Saturday, but because of the craziness going on globally and everybody being trapped in their homes,
What craziness?
There's a lot of craziness. But
I didn't notice anything.
we become like them. Death, alive, but like a nightmare. You drink blood. You not wake up from nightmare. It's from Temple of Doom.
I figured it was from Temple of Doom. So I think we should sort of just have a little chit chat while we wait for folks to show up, kind of like you do at work when you're waiting for people to show up to a meeting.
Yeah.
And that guy from legal is always running late because, you know.
Yep.
So you're just like, hey, Bob, how's the tennis game going? And Bob's like, yeah, I really hurt my elbow the other day. I think I have lateral epicondylitis. And he doesn't call it that, but I'm just paraphrasing. And then you say, man, that really sucks. How's that affecting your game? And then Bob's like, you know, you can stop me at any time.
I don't want to.
Do you miss corporate America, Michael?
No, I don't miss corporate America at all. I don't. I should write a book about how just ridiculous it all is.
It really is. So
I think Ricky Gervais though did it best with his version of The Office. I think he really captured the whole corporate idiocy. But yeah. So how are we looking in the chat right now?
We're good. We've got. Well, see, I just did this. So we've got 78 folks here right now, and that's climbing. Basically, I think that. Wow.
What?
Sorry, I'm getting distracted because I'm reading people's comments. Yeah, you know, since we're doing this, like during the live stream, as you're coming in, say where you're from, say where you are right now. Not where you're from, but like where you are right now.
No street addresses.
No,
but generally...
just like what city you're in, you know, because I think we've been getting a good amount of folks from all over the world, and that's kind of fun for us to see. So, a couple people are mentioning your R2 restoration.
Yes, which is on Patreon right now. It will be going live on YouTube tomorrow. But we did finish the R2D2. That is correct.
Ah, we got lots of folks. Let's see. We've got Fort Worth, Texas, Greenville, South Carolina,
Peru,
Michigan,
London, South America. You know why that's important, because that's where Indiana Jones started in Raiders of the Lost Ark. Yes, okay. Peru. So that's awesome.
Calgary, Canada, Montreal, Quebec, Buffalo, New York. Very cool.
Thank you for the super chat, Master Sun 42. I know you will mention the improv scene that Harrison Ford did. Yes, we will totally talk about that.
We will definitely be getting to that. That was a fun thing that I learned. Hey, Lineville, Alabama. I know where that is. There are very few places in Alabama that I don't know where they are, and it's not really something that I consider a claim to fame. But Dublin, Ireland. I want to go there.
Argentina.
Seattle.
Toronto,
welcome, everyone.
Canada. Vancouver, Canada.
Yes, Michael looks very Indiana Jones today, and I look very heavy metal today. That's pretty much our status quo, right?
Well, the thing is,
you should see us when we travel, and he's always wearing this hat.
So, I do travel wearing this hat. I've been doing that since I was a kid, admittedly. But the hat got upgraded as I got older. But you all should know, and I don't know if he's on the chat yet. He might still be asleep. But you all should know that the reason I'm actually dressed this way is because Tony from Analog Toys sent me a message last night when we announced this live stream topic and said, are you going to wear your Raiders of the Lost Ark outfit on the live stream? And I said, I will for you. So
It doesn't take a lot of arm twisting to make that happen.
So I'm wearing the basic stuff. A lot of it is actually on the table, and admittedly, I did not put on the shoes so that in case anyone asked what the shoes were, I could easily bring them up and show them.
People keep saying clickety click, Melinda, and I know why, because it's a really annoying song from Dot and the Kangaroo, which we put out on the clickety click, clickety click. Wildstar Studio says I look metal no matter what I'm wearing. Well, thank you. That's very kind of you. So yeah, I think that I thought of this topic, and I am taking credit for it.
Yes, Melinda did come up with the topic.
I came up with this topic because we've talked about Indiana Jones, of course, in a number of different venues. We've talked about it. I know you've done some of the toys video that you did, and it seems like you've done a few Indiana Jones things. We've definitely talked about it at conventions that we've gone to and other things like that. But I just thought it would be kind of fun to have a looser conversation around it. We can talk about like some of the props, which I know you have. We can talk about some of the novelizations and the games and some of the other things that aren't just the movies, although we, of course, will be talking about the movies as well. So now that we've got about 150 people here, wow, hi from Scotland. We've got several people from Scotland here.
Someone's asking you about Dadeville, Alabama.
Yes, I know where Dadeville, Alabama. So I'm from Enterprise, Alabama. I'm not from there, but I'll just go ahead and say I graduated high school there. So South Alabama, near Florida. So I know a lot of that Panhandle area, and I know, I went to school at UAB, and so I've lived kind of all over that state. So yeah, there's a lot of places in Alabama that are fairly obscure that I know.
Just to kind of jump into this a little bit, Wish Studios asks, what kind of pistols are these? So these two revolvers here are representative of the broader evolution of Indy's sidearm from the series. So in Raiders of the Lost Ark, he carries a Smith & Wesson M1917, specifically the second model of the hand ejector, which is also known as an M1917. It's a version of the M1917. His particular pistol was cut down to 4 inches in barrel length for the purposes, I guess, of the holster and everything else. However, even though that is different from the World War I pistol barrel length, in Last Crusade, they gave him a Webley. Specifically a Webley Army pistol. This is the Webley Mark.
People are asking if they're replicas.
These are not replicas. These are actuals. To give you some idea of the differences, of course, the Webley Mark VI is only slightly different in its standard military version from Indy's. Indy's had the Army grip on it, which they call a duck's head grip. It had a curve at the bottom of the grip. The bottom of the grip is curved, whereas the standard Webley Mark VI has a squared off grip. This Webley Mark VI is specific in exact styling to Lawrence of Arabia, but the base revolver is identical to Last Crusade, which is the same as Lawrence of Arabia. So it was odd that in the first movie, they gave him like a 4-inch revolver, and then even though that revolver in reality, as you can see, has a long barrel, and then by the time they got to Last Crusade, they were just giving him this massive Webley pistol. Not really sure why they did that, but there it is. So yeah.
Thank you, Scott, for the super chat. Scott says, love all the props. In the bar fight, Indy seems to pull a backup gun out through the editing. It's unclear. Do you know if it's a Browning HP or a 1911A1? It's been bugging me for decades.
Yeah, all the evidence point. That's another good point, Scott, is that Raiders of the Lost Ark is the only Indiana Jones movie where he does have 2 sidearms. All evidence seems to suggest that the sidearm he carries as a spare, a backup, is the Browning High Power. The reasons they say that are some screen grabs seem to indicate that it has that more tapered profile, and it would be 1936, which would be much closer to something regarding... I remember reading back then it was much closer to something regarding the Browning's distribution versus the 1911's distribution at that time. Even though the 1911 goes all the way back to World War I, everybody on Indie Gear seemed to believe at the time that he carried a Browning High Power. I don't know. There was some speculation as to whether or not it was subbing in for a 1911 or not. I don't know if they were really going to get that specific about it in the context of the story. But I would say if you're doing Raiders and you're concerned about his weaponry, that gun is interchangeable. You could use a 1911 or a Browning high power and it would be fine.
So I don't know if it's necessary, but I think it might be interesting for some folks who may not know for you to talk a little bit about your background with Indiana Jones. I mean, obviously we all grew up with the films and love the films and remember them in the theaters and all that kind of stuff. But you also, like, as you got older, continued to be involved. So can you tell them a little bit about that?
I was and still am really into Indiana Jones as a character and a concept and a series. When I was in college, I started writing for the Raider.net. And around my senior year in college, I found myself, I believe it was my senior year in college, I found myself becoming a staff member on IndieGear.com. And at the same time, I also found myself writing for the IndieExperience.com, which were the three major Indiana Jones fan websites at the time. I started all the way back on the Indie fan message boards, back when there were message boards and not even forums. And so at one time, I was writing for all three major Indiana Jones fan sites at the same time. As a contributor, I had the privilege of interviewing Deborah Landis, who was originally Deborah Nadelman, the costume designer on Raiders of the Lost Ark. I interviewed her for the Raider.net. I also got the first screener copy of the Xbox game to review. I had to go buy an Xbox or rent an Xbox to review the game for the site. But yeah, I've been in the Indiana Jones game for a long, long time.
So that's why he has all this stuff. Nathaniel, thank you very much for the super chat. He says, once opened an 80s mystery box with boxed Centurions, Wheeled Warriors, Voltron, etc. Are those still boxed and on display in your studio? Just curious, love that video.
I still have those. They're not on display because it's hard to display boxed items, but I still have all of those, yes.
Yep.
Somebody asked, Jason Anderson asked, was the high power he had in Raiders his, or was it just a gun? No, it's his. You see him pull it out of his satchel. There's an editing mistake in the doorway, and like he starts with the revolver, and then when it cuts to over his shoulder and then back in front of him, suddenly it's an automatic, and then it cuts back and it's a revolver, and then suddenly he runs out of ammo in the revolver, and he reaches into his shoulder bag, and that's where he's pulling out the Browning high power. Yeah.
Eric wants you to discuss the influences of Lawrence of Arabia on the indie films.
Well, Lawrence of Arabia on the Indiana Jones side, Steven Spielberg was a huge fan of David Lean. Steven Spielberg, all right, I'm about to get grumpy about Steven Spielberg for a minute. So Steven Spielberg,
I'll allow it.
You may not notice or pick up on the fact that Steven Spielberg doesn't do commentaries for his movies because he says that he feels like it takes away from the magic of the film. But on the documentary for the restoration of Lawrence of Arabia, he talks about being involved in it and getting to screen the restored print with David Lean when he was still living, and David Lean talking to him the whole time they were watching it about the movie and how wonderful that was. And I want to just reach through the screen and just slap Steven Spielberg and be like, do you see how much of a hypocrite you are right now? Like, that never got recorded because back then, that was the late 80s. There was no such thing as a commentary, right? So he got the only David Lean commentary for Lawrence of Arabia that ever was. Loved it.
I think we see why he isn't in favor of it. It's like...
So anyway, yeah, it just makes no sense why he won't do commentaries. That being said, Steven Spielberg really loved the photography of Lawrence of Arabia, the way David Lean captured the desert and the horizons and the sunrises and all that kind of stuff. So that shot where they're digging for the Ark and the sun is going down and you see Indy in silhouette, as the diggers are moving dirt and he puts his hat on in the silhouette. All of that is very Lawrence of Arabia, David Lean photography and cinematography inspired. The stuff where he's wrapped up in the white disguise in the dig site, that's also very reminiscent of Lawrence dressing up like a Bedouin. And then when he uses the transom, is that what they call those things? The archaeological transit? Is it a transit?
I'm not sure what you're talking about. So
That thing that the surveyor that he looks through to measure distances across.
I can't remember.
Anyway, when he's looking through that to measure the areas.
I was a lowly ditch digger when I did archaeology.
Okay.
So.
That also, those shots, are also very. He tried to create some grandiose stuff in Tunisia with that, and that's all very derived from Lawrence of Arabia.
Robert Pearson, thank you for the super chat. Robert says, there is a distinct lack of a Chachapoyan fertility idol. If you need one, I'll send you one of mine with the jelly babies and archive submission. Did I say that right?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
It's the Peruvian idol that.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah. I just didn't know how to say it.
Yeah. So funny story about that. Back when I was living in Los Angeles and I was really involved in indie gear, a friend of mine named Michael, who was big into props and the RPF and all that kind of stuff, he was actually gold plating a run of accurate idols, because there's a mold of that idol that you can buy all day on eBay that's actually kind of off, and then there's another mold that he had worked on that has come to light that is the accurate Raiders mold. And at first, if you don't see them side by side, you think the other one's accurate. But then when you see them side by side, you're like, oh no, that one's way off. So Michael was doing a run of them in actual gold plate. Like, he actually was gold plating the outside to really give them that true shine. Because a lot of them are matte gold sprayed and they don't look like the movie. And we were all standing outside after a meetup. It was like a meetup group for indie.
I feel like I'm on our first date right now.
It was like, and he says, Michael, are you gonna get in on the run of idols? And I was just standing there, dressed mostly like I am now, actually. And I said, I was like, no, I'm okay, I'm good. And he goes, well, this is like a limited run of like 24 or something, 12 or 24. And all the other guys standing around were like, yeah, Michael, I want one. Why don't you want one? And I said, because Indy didn't have it at the end. I said it was stolen from him by Belloc. He never got it back. And they all kind of looked at me, and Michael started laughing because he could see that's where my brain goes. He saw the logic of what I was saying. And he was like, I said, I don't need a Cross of Coronado, and I'm not into having an Ark replica, and I'm not into, the reason I have this headpiece idol is, one, a friend gave it to me who is a big props guy, but two, he knew that would be the one prop I ever said I would want from Indy as a treasure, is because it's the one thing that Indy used and then got away with in any of the films. Mm-hmm. He didn't give it to a museum that you saw. It was Marion's, and I was just kind of, and so Michael started laughing because he got where I was coming from. But I've always just been interested in Indy as the man, as the character, as what he had on him, and all that kind of stuff. That's why I've never gone after an idol. I've seen some beautiful replicas of them, and beautiful replicas of the Ark and the Sankara stones and the Cross of Coronado and the Grail and all that kind of stuff. But it's never been something that I've wanted to fill up a shelf with. I
know we've got some super chats backing up, so sorry I'm not forgetting you, but I want to sort of say this before I move on. Eric Pieper says that Deborah Nadelman is John Landis's wife, and she also designed the jacket for Michael Jackson's Thriller.
Right.
Which is interesting because it loops back to the whole combat thing in a horrible way.
Right. John Landis
Vic
and
that whole fiasco with Vic Morrow. But yeah, so 6 degrees of whatever. Sorry, now I have to go back up to make sure that Okay, Salvador, thank you very much for the super chat. He says, contributing to the Toy Fund, if you could pick a company to hold the license for indie figures, what would you like to see? Personally, I would like to see SH Figuart.
Yeah, they're Bondi's SH Figure Arts. Yeah.
Okay, take a crack at it. Keep up the great work. Bosk is best. Yes, he is.
Okay, so I'll be straight up with that answer. First of all, SH Figure Arts is a great company. There's no doubt about it. They do some beautiful Star Wars stuff, but it's only available in Japan or through import, which is very cumbersome a process. If I had to pick a group right now that I would love to see have the Indiana Jones license, it would be Marauder. I think Marauder's military figures are so good. And that's a pipe dream, but I would love to see Marauder deal with Indiana Jones. The way they did those World War II guys, that's what I would want to see, is Marauder do them, honestly.
Vinkman, thanks for the super chat. He says, Michael, we all know it's the worst indie movie, but was there anything you liked about Kingdom of the Crystal Skull? I think you've said things that are positive about this movie before.
Yeah, I mean, like, okay. I did not walk out of that movie hating it the first time. I was not over the moon, but I wasn't walking out of it the way I walked out of Revenge of the Sith. Like,
right,
I was really mad walking out.
Why do you think that is?
Because it's much like the Disney Star Wars films, it's a film that happens later, and so it can be kind of amputated from the run. Like, okay. you don't have to deal with it if you don't want to.
Right.
And my thing is, there were parts of that movie that I thought, much like Tron Legacy, it was like they were almost...
Wow, are you really comparing those?
They were... No, in the sense that it was almost there with the story. Like, the story had some really compelling ideas.
Right.
And it almost got there, and then it took a hard left, and the story just fell apart. And it was like, it was almost
it took a hard left where you have that guy going, aliens. It was aliens.
Right. And it's kind of like, if you guys had just kept going with the Graham Hancock scholarly stuff about it, like, that they were doing that. And I was literally leaning forward, like, no way, they're going into the whole fingerprints of the gods thing. They're gonna do this. And then they went, aliens. And I'm like, it was just bam. And so it was such a letdown. I really liked some of the action. I thought some of the action was a little overplayed, like a little too CGI, but there were things I really liked, like him grabbing the rocket launcher and blowing up the big thing in front of them while they were driving the truck. I wished that they hadn't CGI'd the jungle, like, because they were already in a jungle. There was no reason to CGI more jungle around the jungle. Like,
I think that, like, some of the really early stuff in the movie is pretty decent. Like,
yeah.
the groundwork that he was laying with
the Cold War,
Shia LaBeouf, and like that's.
Oh yeah, my favorite part of the whole movie.
The 50s diner
scene.
scene. That whole scene was really well done, yeah. And I'm not even a big, like, 50s nostalgia person, but I really liked what they were setting up. It's kind of like The Force Awakens in that way, where at the very beginning it's like, this could be kind of cool.
Yeah, my favorite part of the whole movie... Thank you for reminding me of that.
You're welcome.
My favorite part of that whole movie, in any moment, is the part where he says, hit Joe College, or punch Joe College, punch him right in the mouth or whatever, and he does it, and then that guy says, get that greaser, and then the two groups start fighting in the diner. That part's my favorite part of the whole film.
Yeah.
I mean, so...
Scott, thanks for the super chat. He says, if we crowdfund you a ticket to Marrakesh, would you take an idol?
Well, no, remember, he was going to Marrakesh to buy it back. He didn't have it to go with him. So would I be going there to sell it or going there to buy it?
Okay, so there's another super chat down here. Okay. What are your opinions about the Star Wars prequels now that we have DSW?
Disney Star Wars.
That's a shoe store, right?
Yeah, now that we have DSW shoes. What's your opinion of the prequels? I think they're part of the story. I don't find them particularly watchable. Again, I
still fundamentally find them flawed as films.
Yeah.
However, it's a perspective thing more than a changing that the films are not watchable like you're saying
right.
to me, but I can at least objectively I can appreciate that George Lucas was at least trying to do something new and creative in the sense that he was trying to find a new way to make films.
Yes.
And change filmmaking, which I think he kind of achieved.
He did. He did.
So I can't completely call them failures as films.
You have to remember that when they did the original films, they took all of those ideas, some of which ended up being sprinkled into the prequels, some of which ended up being a large part of the original trilogy, and they found the best ideas, the most engaging ideas, and that's George Lucas's doing. Okay, give him all credit. And they said, we got to start here because this is the most interesting stuff. So when they started with the original Star Wars and told that story, they knew that was the most interesting, captivating part. So everything after that is all downhill, really.
Right.
So anyway.
Someone keeps asking if I still find Willie's screaming annoying, and yes, I will always find it annoying. Jason Anderson says, does Michael's staff of raw headpiece have the proper markings on the back?
It should. It's got the fewer markings on the back. I don't know if they're correct, but my buddy Steven is very, very detail oriented about this stuff, so I don't think he would have gotten that wrong.
Beta Ray Bob says, who else was able to complete the Indiana Jones Atari game? After more than a few tries, I could nail the parachute part with no problem.
Yeah, I never did complete this game, honestly. Glad I have it in my collection, but I never could figure that game out.
And Travels with Jason says, I'm sorry, I may be reading this wrong. Fair, you allow to take them guns in when you go to Comic-Con, as in the UK we are not allowed only plastic on or 3D now. So I guess just
okay.
Are you able to take the guns in when you go into a Comic-Con? Absolutely not.
First of all, these are
real guns.
These are real guns. They're not props. And also on top of that, just to give you guys an idea of when I used to cosplay, we used to call it costuming. Now everybody calls it cosplay, which to me sounds anime. When I used to costume as Indiana Jones, I never actually carried a gun because the holster is flapped. So you don't have to actually cause yourself any grief. You just literally have the holster on your belt.
Also, it's less heavy.
It's less heavy.
Yeah.
And just not even having a plastic prop in there saves you a lot of headaches. You remember from the Lara Croft thing.
Oh my God.
So I just always carried the holster empty, which is the benefit of a World War I style flap holster.
Matt Movies, thank you for the super chat. He says, I'm late, so if you answered this, that's fine. Do you have any thoughts on the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles?
They're right there. The Young Indiana Jones stuff was something I was real excited about as a kid. I didn't have a lot of time to enjoy it because we ended up moving to England soon after that, and my whole TV watching thing got real thrown off. I liked the stuff with Sean Patrick Flannery a lot more than I did the really, really young kid because, and I think the show ended up going in that direction fully as well. I need to revisit the show, and that's why I bought the whole thing on DVD several years ago. I want to revisit the show completely. But I feel like it had really good intentions, but I just don't think it brought in enough action most of the time to be an Indiana Jones
It seems like something that's ripe for a remake.
Yeah.
Like a reboot of that would be way more interesting to me than the whole movie with an 80-year-old Harrison Ford.
Right.
That's just me. Robert Pearson says, are you two going to have a drinking competition looking at the shot glasses? Well, I suggested it, Robert, and, I'm right there with you because I could totally Marion his ass under the table. But am I right?
Yeah. I don't know about that.
Let's find out today. But Michael said no. So...
These shot glasses, by the way, they are the style of shot glass down to the last divot from the Ravenwood bar. That's why they're on the table. These are the Ravenwood bar shot glasses. They are not the ones used in the film, but they are the exact same style, weight, design, everything.
Let's see. So we've got... Clone Captain Blasto says, wasn't the reason he carried the spare because of Willie dropping his gun?
That is a really good workable theory. Even though Temple of Doom came out after Raiders, it was set 1 year before, and he did lose his revolver at the beginning of Raiders. The only thing that would throw a monkey wrench in that theory is the fact that we never see him pull his spare in Last Crusade. And he does run out of ammo in the Webley, so you would think he would then pull the sidearm, the 1911 or the Browning high power, which he does not. So that gets back to the whole thing how Raiders of the Lost Ark was just an edgier movie. You know, I used to say that there was a movie called Raiders of the Lost Ark, and then there was an Indiana Jones trilogy that came after that of just 3 separate adventures: Temple of Doom, Last Crusade, Crystal Skull. Raiders of the Lost Ark really does stand head and shoulders above the rest of these films, as much as I love Temple of Doom. It's the only film where he wears the gloves, which I love.
You do love the gloves.
I love the gloves. It's the only film where he has 2 pistols.
It's weird because both of us love gloves. The only thing about the 50s that I think is cool from a women's fashion perspective, aside from just being able to spin and your dress kind of twirls out, is wearing little gloves everywhere. I just think that sounds, as girly as it is, I just think it sounds like so much fun. So
yes, these are real pistol revolvers. These are real revolvers. Yes.
I thought it would be fun. No one's got a specific super chat right now. Tell the story of the hat.
This particular hat?
This particular hat, I think people will find this to be really an interesting story.
Oh, okay. So one of the big unicorns. Now, are you talking about how the real hat was discovered, or the? Okay. So for a long, long time, when we were on the message boards arguing about whether or not Indiana Jones' jacket was chocolate brown or dark chocolate brown, and arguments like that.
He says, "Put on the hat." Jonathan says, "Put on the hat."
I will in a minute. One of the big problems we had was getting the Raiders hat, because the Raiders of the Lost Ark hat is markedly different from the hat in subsequent movies. Temple of Doom, Last Crusade, even Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, the hat looks different. And
I'll put on the hat.
And nobody could figure out what the deal was with the Raiders hat, why none of the vendors could recapture that look. And so people were going all over the place asking about, can this hat vendor try it? And that hat vendor would try it and they wouldn't quite get it right. And can this guy do it? And we were all just like, how can we recapture the Raiders hat magic? Because not even the original hatter in London was able to recapture it. And finally, a friend of ours on the forum named Steve Delk, I was in graduate school. This was about 04, 05. He posted a photograph just saying, "I've done it." And it was a hat on a table, and it looked just like Harrison Ford's hat from Raiders of the Lost Ark. And we thought, what the heck had happened? And he had gone back and quietly in the background, after collecting all the Stetsons and all the Dorfman Pacifics and the Peter Brothers and all the different hats, the Borsalinos, all the hats that were available that weren't quite right. And he went to the Library of Congress and got a book published in 1919 on how to make hats. And he started teaching himself and buying equipment on eBay to teach himself how to make hats. Learning about blocks, learning about steaming, shaping, all that kind of stuff. And he basically rediscovered the Raiders hat and how to do it. And so we all immediately just started buying the hat from him. This was in 05. Well, he became very popular very quickly on the Indie Gear board. And then one day he gets a phone call and the guy says, "Mr. Delk, please hold for Mr. Spielberg." And Steven Spielberg was on the other end of the phone and literally said, "Hey, I've heard about your reputation. We need a hatter for Indiana Jones 4. Can you provide the hats for Indiana Jones 4? And he was like, yeah. And so our joke has always been the best thing about Indiana Jones 4 is the hat.
I was going to say that's the other thing you like about Indiana Jones 4.
Is the hat, because even though he wasn't able to sell them on doing the Raiders hat again, he did get the Raiders crown in there. So it has the Last Crusade look on the Raiders crown, if that makes any sense. So.
And you got a copy in a fun way too. I don't know if you even want to tell that story.
Oh yeah, so I get the hat in the mail in '05. Steve was tracking it along with me. He called me on the phone when I got it, and he was like, "Have you sat on it?" And I said, "No, of course not." He said, "Well, no, you need to." I said, "What? It's a brand new hat." He goes, "No, no, 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 no. Sit on it, and sit on it for 5 minutes." He said, because afterwards, when you pop it back up, it's going to look just like the Raiders hat, because they would beat the hat up before they filmed. That's how they made it look that way. And so I sat on this brand new hat and sat there for like 5 minutes with him talking me through it. And then I got up and I popped the hat back up, and it looks just like the Raiders hat. I mean, it's got the little...
Scott, you're right. Fans doing the best work.
Fans are doing the best work. Since
they want you to put the hat on so much.
My hair's a little too long right now. How's that look?
Oh, it looks nice.
Does it look nice?
It's nice.
Get my hair out from behind my ears.
The whip is not fake, actually.
No, the whip is not fake. The whip is a David Morgan whip. David Morgan was the man who made the whips for all 3 original indie films. He kept changing his design a little bit over the years. And so that whip, while it is considered his indie whip, he called it his Indiana Jones style whip. It does have some aesthetic differences from the ones from Raiders. However, I also have a whip from somebody that studied under him, Bernardo Del Carpio.
Bernardo Del Carpio.
The coolest name in history. And he makes the Raiders style whip as David Morgan made it in 1981. And I have that whip as well. It has a longer, thinner handle. It's just a slightly different design style.
Someone says, "Where did Michael go?" Juan says, "Did he also make Catwoman's whip in Batman Returns?"
Yes, David Morgan did make the whip for Catwoman in Batman Returns. That is correct.
People are loving you in the hat. I love you in this hat too. It really suits you very well. And Michael, this is his traveling hat. So seriously, even when we're not taking pictures to put on like Instagram or whatever, he literally wears the hat whenever we travel. And it pays off because it's nice if it rains or if it's...
Yeah, when we were in Tombstone.
Yeah.
It was funny. We were in Tombstone, Arizona, where everybody is dressed up like the 1870s, the Old West. And I show up dressed like this to walk around town. And it was the first time in my life that all the people dressed up as Old West were all saying, "Oh, cool, there's a guy dressed up like Indiana Jones in town." And I wasn't wearing a whip or anything like that. I just had my stuff on like this, just my clothes.
Well, that's the cool thing about Indiana Jones is that you can do the whole like covert costuming thing,
right,
where you wear like a part or a piece from something to sort of bring it into your regular life to sort of make your life a little bit cooler, which I kind of like that whole idea of, dressing up in a full-on costume may not be feasible, but you could have like one little thing that kind of adds that.
Right.
And this is a perfect example.
Well, the other cool part about it is that most of the time the average layperson, when they see you walking around in a hat like this and you're just out and about, they all say, "Look at the cowboy."
Yeah.
But when I was actually in the ultimate cowboy town, they know
that's not a cowboy hat.
This is not a cowboy
because
hat.
they know what cowboy hats
right,
look like.
And they're like, "Oh, Indiana Jones,"
Yeah, the street performers who work in Tombstone were the guys who like initially were like, "That's a really great hat," and so I'm sure they see all kinds of city slickers who have cowboy hats.
Right.
That they.
Well, they could tell it was a quality hat too.
Sure.
And one guy said something like, didn't he say something like, "Are you looking for the Holy Grail?" Or he said something that was very knowledgeable about the movies.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember what it was though.
Matt says, "Do you wear the same hat for Tom Baker's costume?"
No, the Tom Baker hat is a completely different
Isn't
hat.
his hat the same as Freddy Krueger?
No. His hat is the same make. His hat was the same basic foundational hat from Herbert Johnson as the Raiders hat. But they left the brim wider, and they gave it a different ribbon.
Okay.
And they bashed it differently, so it doesn't look this pinched at the front.
When you say bash,
The bash is all of this stuff, the dents,
I'm saying it for them.
Yeah.
For folks,
but they made it look different. I have the Tom Baker hat as well. It's a totally different hat.
Do you have someone you'd like to shout out, like who is a great hat maker?
Yes, John Penman. He's on Facebook. He's on the internet. John Penman, Penman.
Man.
And he actually took over all of the stuff when Steve Delk retired, and he was already a hatter in his own right. He made my Doctor Who hat. He made my Dick Tracy fedora. He also reblocked this hat before we went to England. He was the guy that cleaned and reblocked this hat for me. So, yeah, John Penman is the guy you want if you want.
And what about the jacket? You have a great jacket, and
this jacket is from the legacy company that would have Peter Botwright, who's now passed, may he rest in peace. He was the guy that worked with a company called Leather Concessionaries, which was subcontracted out by Bermans and Nathans to do the jacket in Raiders. He then ran his own company for years called Wested Leather out of the UK, and Wested Leather still makes the Indie Raiders jacket or Temple of Doom version or Last Crusade. They make them in slightly different... They always look slightly different from movie to movie. But this is the Raiders jacket.
Someone says, no, I don't think that's a Stetson. It's definitely not a Stetson. It's a custom piece.
This is a custom hat from Steve Delk. His company was called Adventure Built, and now
if somebody were looking for one now, could they still get one?
An Adventure Built? Yeah, they get it through John Penman. John Penman makes them. Yeah.
And then...
Penman hats.
Yeah, and someone else, Bren, says, I want those shirts. I assume he means...
This shirt is... So, the shirt is made by Magnolia Clothiers.
Yeah, shout out to him. He does amazing work.
Yeah, he does amazing work. Tony, I always call him Tony, Indy Magnolia, he was on the Indie Gear boards as well. He was a fan, like we all were, and he loved vintage clothes. He loved the Bond suits. He loved tuxedos. He loved jackets from movies. He loved vintage fashion, and he started his own clothing company. You talk about fans doing the best work.
Yeah.
He started just making clothes that you can order from him on his website, Magnolia Clothiers. He makes the Raiders shirt, but you can also get it in the Temple of Doom Last Crusade version. The Raiders version, like this, the way you can tell it's Raiders is that the buttons are almost the same color as the fabric. Whereas in Temple of Doom and Last Crusade, the buttons are darker, almost like a dark brown, so they stand out more. But he makes the pants, the shirt. You can get the belt from him. You can get some of the, like a facsimile of the shoes. Although the shoes are still available. The shoes are Alden 405 walking boots. They're rather pricey now. I bought these back when I was in college or grad school. I can't remember. College, or right after college. And you can still get these. And you can get really nice copies from Tony, or Indy Magnolia. I keep saying Tony because I keep thinking of Analog Toys.
So lots of people are saying you should do a Bond costume. I think that one of the things that I know about Michael is when he was, especially, we don't really do as much costuming anymore, but when I first met Michael, he was still very heavily doing costuming, and part of this, and the reason he knows so much about this, is he would literally sit and watch the movie and pause it, and like all these key moments, and like literally take notes and look as closely as possible at every little tiny detail, every fold, every button, every, the shoes, the laces, the belt, and all of that kind of stuff. And so back in that time, like costuming at Dragon Con or other conventions was like such a thing, and it was so like almost competitive, like how accurate you could be. Now it's not so much that, but that is certainly a trait of like hardcore costumers from the olden times, like for us. And it's really cool to see how attentive fans can be.
Yeah, Simon here is saying Magnolia did a wonderful 10th Doctor costume for him, coat, blue suit. Yeah, as a matter of fact, Indy Magnolia did my 10th Doctor costume. The shirt, the cardigan, the green scarf tie,
the pants,
the pants, and the outer shooting jacket. He did all of that, the original 10th Doctor costume for me, and I couldn't have been happier with it. He also did my
I'm still making the scarf.
he did my Dick Tracy tie for the Warren Beatty Dick Tracy.
Uh-huh.
He did a lot of the Blade Runner stuff for oh my god, wow, this is bad.
Man.
Anyway, he makes a lot of the Blade Runner.
I'm glad it's not just me.
He makes a lot of the Blade Runner stuff, and then he also did my RAF tie for my the black tie for my RAF stuff.
Yes, Jody, we are on lockdown here in Atlanta area, and we are not able to go to the post office right now to pick anything up. So we don't have any cool boxes to open, but hopefully soon we will be going and making a really big run.
Yeah, I hope to soon. Otherwise, I want to know what's going to happen with all the stuff at the P.O. box.
Yeah, I'm actually considering going upstairs and getting my knitting project just so that I can show you guys how far I've made it on the Doctor Who scarf. I'm really proud of it. It looks really good. So I'm about halfway through with it. So,
as far as the novels, I saw some questions about the novels. I haven't read the Young Indiana Jones novels. I've read some of the Indiana Jones novels. They're not bad, but like a lot of 90s licensed fiction, they don't stick around in my head very much. They're kind of in and out, like they're pleasure reading and then it's over. So I haven't really retained those in my memory. But I don't recall having a huge issue with all of them. I vaguely remember some were pretty terrible, but most of them were all right.
Jeff Schumann asks, what year is Indy supposed to have been born in?
Oh man, I don't know. You know,
let's see. Well, if it's in the 20s, 30s, what year is it?
36 is Raiders.
So probably 1900, or not long after, between 1900 and 1910, right?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Okay. I want to make sure that I haven't missed a super chat because I've been. Okay, it doesn't look like it. All right. 1899. Lots of people are yelling out, so I was pretty darn close. Okay, so people want me to show the scarf. I'm going to go get the scarf. Go ahead and talk about one of these other wonderful things you have out here on the table.
Okay, sure. Can I take this hat off?
Yes. You can take the jacket off, too, because it's kind of hot.
Okay. All right, so one of the things that I had a hard time with as a kid was the fact that, you know, we didn't have a lot in the way of Indiana Jones kid-related merch. I ended up getting one of the hats from J.C. Penney back when Last Crusade came out. And I had a few of the Nintendo games, but like trying to find action figures was really difficult. If you've seen our video about the Indiana Jones toy situation, then you've seen all the toys they ever made for that in the vintage era. I know they came out with a bunch of toys in the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull summer, which spread, you know, across all four films. I have a bunch of those as well that I've never shown on camera, I don't think. Well, no, that's not true. I did show Short Round in the Fast Draw video that we did. So Short Round has been on camera. But yeah, the Indiana Jones thing for me as a kid was mostly video games. And I was just wondering if that was the same thing for you guys, or if you were all into the comic books, or maybe you guys were lucky and had the toys, or if it was like me and you just played a few Nintendo games and then ran out in the backyard trying to pretend you were Indiana Jones. Just wondering what that was like for you guys. Let's see. DV is coping just fine with the lockdown. Jonathan Rose says, if you could only watch 3 films, would Indy be one? Yeah, Raiders of the Lost Ark would certainly be one. That one, Lawrence of Arabia, and probably 12 O'Clock High, something like that. Although I do really love Where Eagles Dare, so that would be a tough choice.
Did you miss me?
I did.
Okay, so I want to show you guys this scarf.
Christopher It's not that I don't know these facts. It's that I'm up here being asked 500 questions at a time. And also, have you looked around? I've got like 50 properties around me. So if you're expecting me to have like exact recall on nuanced information for 50 different properties that have like 2,000 different questions, I think that's a little unreasonable. So just cool your jets.
It's okay. Master Son 42, thank you for the super chat. He says, no unboxing the big D, LOL.
Well, actually we do have one box that we could open from
Okay, we'll save that to the end.
Yeah. So we will be opening a box here at the end. We have one box that came directly to us.
Okay, so now that we're past that awkward moment, I'm going to show you my cool scar. Watch out, your hat. Okay, so it's quite long, so I can't get all of it in the camera, but I got this this pattern off of the DoctorWhoScarf.com, and it's got a really detailed set for whichever scarf you want to make, and I'm not quite halfway through with making it, but I think it's going to turn out really nicely, and so I'm excited to see what it's going to look like. I still have to weave in all of these loose ends over here when I'm done and add the tassels and all that fun stuff after I'm done too. Yeah. So
Venkman, in front of the Young Indiana Jones DVD, that is the official Young Indiana Jones pocket knife, which I was gifted back when it was sold. And I just kept it in the box because I was already in the Boy Scouts, and I could tell that pocket knife, while a very high quality piece, it has a clear plastic handle on both sides, and I knew it would get so scratched up, and I didn't want it to get scratched up and beat up, so I just left it in the box. I'll show you what it looks like real quick.
By the way, I'm surprised you don't have the machete out here.
I can get it.
I think you can count this as Michael getting up, guys, if you want to.
All right, so this is one side of the knife. And on the other side, you have Morse code.
That's really cool. Somebody asked, where did I see that? Carl asked, what kind of yarn am I using for the scarf? So I have a blend. So in order to match the colors, of course the scarf was made in England in the 70s, so you can't exactly buy the exact same dye lots for the yarn, so you have to approximate, and it's somewhat difficult. They do give you essentially Pantone colors that are on the website, so you can try to do that. But this pattern is actually modeled off of the actual scarf that costumers have gone in and actually taken photos of and looked at the number of stitches wide and for each section, and it's insane how detailed it is. But so I've got yarn from Knit Picks, which is a great website. It's 100%. It's a sport weight, and it's 100% wool. All of this is 100% wool. And then I've also got Jameson's, which I also wish I had Jameson's to go in those shot glasses, and then we could have a really fun live stream. But so yeah, I can send you details if you really want to know all the details. You can ask me, and we'll probably make a video about the scarf when I finish it. So, Scott, thank you for the super chat. Scott says Marvel's Indy Jones comics were similar to their Star Wars comics of the day. Great ways to enjoy new adventure in an age when annual movie sequels weren't a thing.
Yeah, it was helpful to have that, between films. The Further Adventures of Indiana Jones Marvel comic unfortunately passed me by. I was probably too young to have picked up on it, and the comic didn't last terribly long, so I never got issues at the time. I have more issues of it now than I did ever. I had no issues as a kid. I had some as a teenager. Melinda, you were asking about
Did you say you had no issues?
Ha 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 ha.
I'm hilarious.
Melinda was asking about the bridge knife. I have the official stainless steel replica of the bridge knife from Temple of Doom right here. This was made several years ago during the heyday of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. And
I like it.
I wish that I had a functional version of this, but I don't. Todd's Costumes used to sell a more functional version of the bridge knife, but he doesn't sell that anymore to my knowledge. So have to keep looking.
Jody, thank you for the super chat. He says it's just cuz.
Michael Johnson says he's got Jameson's and shot glasses right now.
Oh, I'm so jealous of you.
The maker of this knife was the Noble Collection. The Noble Collection made this knife back in 2008.
Someone is asking, is that a David Morgan whip? I know we've already talked about the whip, but it probably came in late.
Yes, it's a David Morgan original.
Yes, it is. Okay. So, now that's a knife. I can't do the accent. Drink, everybody. Yes, so this is an Iron Maiden shirt. Someone sent this to me, and I am an asshole, sorry, and I did not write down who it was. Michael, do you remember who sent this shirt to me? We get, like, we'll open a ton of boxes, and then sometimes we forget to write down or make a note of, like, who sent what.
It's on a live stream somewhere.
Someone sent me this shirt, and it's, whoever you are, I apologize. I really like it. Thank you very much. I wanted to wear it to acknowledge the very thoughtful gift. So,
Are you knitting right now on the live
I'm knitting
stream?
right now because I thought people might want to see me knit.
Okay, well, great.
What's wrong with that? It's not like I'm bored. I certainly am multitasking.
I don't have anything from the Lego Indiana Jones stuff. I seriously considered buying that stuff when it was out back in 2008, and then I thought, I'm not a Lego collector. I like Legos just fine, but it's a lifestyle. Once you start buying Legos, that's what you're into. And so I didn't buy any of it. I regretted that the moment they came out with the Temple of Doom playset for Lego at the very end, because I was like, oh, I wish I'd have gotten all the others. I have played all the Lego Indiana Jones games. I have both of those, and I've played through them numerous times.
Jody, thanks again. He says, just for you trying to do a Dundee accent. I am the worst at accents, you guys. Like, the only one I can do is a Minnesota accent, and Michael hates it, so I try not to do it. Like, he really dislikes it. Maybe he just dislikes mine.
No.
Maybe he hates all Minnesotans.
I do not.
I want to learn how to knit. Well, Cute Fluff, I can help you out. There's a great book called Stitchin' Bitch that I can highly recommend, and it really walks you through step by step. There's a ton of great videos, so now is a great time to learn how to crochet or knit because we're all stuck inside, and you can buy tons of yarn and just make Christmas presents for your family. It'll be awesome.
How do you know how many layers or rows you got to do for the one thing?
So the DoctorWhoScarf.com is amazing, like I said earlier, and from my understanding, they have a whole ton of information on their website, so please don't take my word for it, but the person who runs that website has actually seen, like, at one of those traveling shows where they show costumes, like, on a model. They've gone there, and literally you can count the stitches, and they counted the stitches not only of, like, how long the scarf is, but also, like, and how wide. It's like 60 minus 60 knit stitches wide, but also how many each section
Yeah,
has.
I'm just wondering how you've got that memorized right now, because you're just like...
I know I have to do 40 rows of this color,
okay.
So I'm good for the whole live stream.
I have not visited...
How many lines? Cocaine!
I haven't... I've been to Venice. I have been to Venice. I can't recall if we were able to find the church in Venice where they were, which I believe isn't really a church. It's something else entirely. But I don't remember if we actually found that place while we were there. I was only 12 or 13 years old. So, and then let's see.
Let's see. Is this a someone asked, is this a Temple of Doom notebook for
Yes,
school? Matt
it is.
movies?
It's a Temple of Doom school notebook that I found at a of all things a military miniatures show a few months ago. The guy just wanted like they were unused and there were two of them and he was like $5 and I'm like great.
Kevin Mitchell says the RAF says hi, keep up the great work.
Oh, nice! Thank you so much. RAF are my heroes.
Let's see. I'm going to go over to our. Let's see. RetroBlasting. That's funny. Merster says, hey, did you have the Temple of Doom comic book? It had stuff that I think were originally in the script, kind of like Alan Dean Foster's novels.
Yeah, I have the Temple of Doom comic book and the collected Marvel volume. I also have the Raiders one for that. And I have the Last Crusade storybook or something, which is not a comic. Fun fact, the Temple of Doom storybook for children was written by Michael French. That's true.
But it wasn't you.
But it wasn't me, because I would have only been 6.
You were really talented.
Yeah.
That Geeky Maker says, have you seen the indie whip Adam Savage made? What did you think of it?
I haven't seen that. I saw the Han Solo pistol he made, but I haven't seen the whip he made. I'm sure it's great. I didn't see that particular episode of his series.
Tim Hayes says, did Gunga Din inspire Indiana Jones? Thought I heard you mention that once in a video.
Yeah, Gunga Din inspired, especially it inspired Temple of Doom, for sure. Temple of Doom is a sequel to Gunga Din more than it is a follow-up to Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Or prequel.
Or prequel, which I loathe to use. It's really a sequel to Gunga Din, and if you haven't seen Gunga Din and you like Indiana Jones, do yourself a favor, because Gunga Din is the 1939 Cary Grant equivalent. And I don't want to hear anybody say they can't watch black and white or they don't like old movies, because if you like Indiana Jones, you essentially like old movies. You're just not watching them.
Right. Fade to Black says, how comes directors like Spielberg and Lucas hit the ball out of the park on the vintage films and then fail so badly when they try to make modern sequels? That's a great question.
Yeah. I think part of it is them just changing as people.
I was going to say the same thing. I think it's they lose touch with their roots.
Right. They're now not even fathers. They're now grandfathers. And very few people hold on to that edge and that kind of... It's the
same reason Metallica sucks now.
Yeah, it's the whole idea that now I've got something to lose. And so now I become way too careful with all my stuff. And I play it safe. And... It's probably... I mean,
Temple of Doom, they really took a lot of risks, and now they want to distance themselves from it. But, I mean, while there are things about that movie that I find annoying, like, yes, Willie screaming and stuff, I do think it's a really great film in the sense that it's very dark, it's edgy, it's kind of unbelievable that they pushed this out as a kid's movie. I know your parents didn't let you see it, but
there's a making of Temple of Doom that's like an hour and a half long. It's really, really good. It was aired on like PBS. If you can find a copy on YouTube or something, watch it. But you can see them because they made the making of prior to the movie coming out. And both Spielberg and Lucas still have that fire in their voice. Like they're still real excited. They're like, yeah, we're gonna scare people, and this is gonna be different, and this is gonna be
I love that.
And then all of a sudden they got the criticism from a few people,
which they hadn't had in a little while.
Even though Temple of Doom was the second highest grossing movie of the year or something like that, they were still like, oh, that criticism, we gotta apologize for this, and it's like, guys, you made an amazing film, but that's why all the subsequent Indiana Jones movies have followed this pattern, which is why I make the controversial statement all the time, which is truly my opinion. I think Temple of Doom is the second best Indiana Jones movie.
I agree.
I think they go in order. I think they get worse as they go along.
So what does that say about this upcoming movie?
The upcoming movie, the odds are not with it at the moment. So we'll see.
Scuba Pete, thank you very much for the super chat. He says, we got to go to Petra last spring, blown away seeing it in person, having only seen it via Last Crusade.
Yeah, I would love to go there. It's a beautiful, beautiful place from everything I've read and all the photos I've seen. I would love to see it. Yeah.
Okay, let's go down here. Indy 5 has been delayed another year. I think a lot of things are delayed at this point.
Yeah.
For sure. Let me go back over to my other list of questions here that I have. Thank you so much, Tim Ward. You're the best. Merster again says, oh, and did you play Fate of Atlantis or The Last Crusade?
Yeah, I played Fate of Atlantis a few years after it came out. Bought it, own it, love it. Wish I had the movie poster for it that they made, even though it was just a game. Fate of Atlantis is probably still the best Indiana Jones video game ever made for a platformer console. I've played every Indiana Jones game except Spear of Destiny for PlayStation 2 or something like that. That's the only one I didn't play because I didn't have that console. I've liked them all. I even liked Infernal Machine, as clunky as it was. But it's interesting to me that the Indiana Jones franchise with Infernal Machine really was trying to play catch up with Tomb Raider, because they knew that Tomb Raider was inspired by Indiana Jones, and so then they tried to hop into that game market. And they made a solid game, but they didn't make a breakout game. They didn't make a revolutionary game. It was just kind of... And so, at the end of the day, do I wish I could play it again? Yeah, but it was pretty clunky. Like, looking back. But yeah, I've enjoyed the Indiana Jones video games.
Dilios of Sparta says, Michael, would you get the urn holding the ashes of...
Nurhaci?
Yeah, the first emperor of Manchu dynasty. Would you get that?
Again, it was taken from him, and he also didn't get the diamond. So I'm not as into indies.
Like prop.
I'm not as into the treasures of Indiana Jones. I'm just more into the guy.
Although that could be a thing that a person could get really into.
Yeah,
it's just not, it would make a cool display.
I'm not saying that a person shouldn't get into that. I'm saying
it's just not your thing.
It's just not my thing.
But I can see that like having like all of those in order, like on a shelf with like cool lighting, would be a really cool.
Well, there
display.
are people that have done that.
Absolutely, I'm sure there are.
It's just not me.
Lots of people have asked this, so I'm going to go ahead and say, Kevin DeBont says, do you hate snakes?
No, as a matter of fact, my big phobia are like bugs. I don't like big skittery bugs and spiders. Those are my things. So Temple of Doom is much more effective for me in that regard because of the whole bugs thing.
And I concur.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't have a problem with snakes.
Nobody wants to accidentally walk up on a snake. Like, just like nobody wants to accidentally walk off a cliff. You know, it's like you may not be afraid of heights, but you're still going to not want to walk off a cliff, just like you're not going to want...
You have a healthy respect for them.
Yeah. I have a healthy respect for snakes, but snakes don't send me into, as much as bugs do.
Yeah, I actually love all animals. I don't have an issue with any bugs or snakes, but I don't necessarily want them on me. It's kind of the way I feel about most humans. That brown bat says, didn't Indy wear a gray fedora in Raiders while on the plane?
Yes, he has what's called the seaplane fedora, which is a dark charcoal gray. And then in Crystal Skull, he ends up wearing a light gray fedora on the train, which is a callback to that dress fedora that he wears at the beginning and end of Raiders. So
Aaron's here. Hi, Aaron. Christopher Perez says that Aaron should dress up as Sala. I mean...
Yeah.
I guess.
Have I ever stapled the hat to my head? No, and neither did Harrison Ford. That was a gag. There were no staples in the staple gun.
Jody, thanks again. He says, Fate of Atlantis movie poster ordered for you.
Oh my God.
Stop
Jody!
opening your mouth.
Jody! I'm just going to have to, people are going to ask me questions, and I'm just going to be like...
Nah. We have Finite Space. Thomas S. But thank you, Jody. It's very generous.
Yeah, it's very kind. Thank you.
Thomas, thank you for the super chat. He says, I agree with you about Spielberg losing his edge. Do you think it's a good thing then that Mangold is directing the new one?
Yeah, I think so. The question will be, will Harrison Ford still have his edge at 80 as much as he can bring it to the table? I really love the guy's acting. I don't think Harrison Ford himself is in, quote, bad shape, but you got to keep telling yourself he's in great shape for 80. Like, he's not in great shape for 35, you
right.
know? So it's just
and neither am I.
And keep in mind, Crystal Skull was 12 years ago, and he was in his early 60s when he did that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're talking a lot of mileage. You know, it's not the years, it's the mileage. But in this case now, it's the years and the mileage. So it'll be interesting to see how they navigate that challenge.
Aaron, yeah, so Aaron says that, wow, what a greeting. Well, it's because we've missed you, dude. Like, and for us, like, for me, anyway, I'll speak for myself. Michael doesn't like you, but I'm kidding. I miss being able to, like, brainstorm about Dreamland, and we're still trying to figure out the best way for us to record. I think we've already picked our topic for the next Dreamland. And we want to do it. It's just a matter of figuring out the best sound quality recording technique that we can use, since we can't be in the same room together. So we don't want to compromise the quality. So anyway, Monkey Boy Cloth Cat, fun name, says, Michael, any chance of a quick Mark Wahlberg impression, please?
My God, really?
Yeah, I like that because I love the Mark Wahlberg impression.
I mean, that staff is just a stick. Nobody really knows for sure how high. And it's capped by this elaborate headpiece with a crystal in the center. And what you did was you took this staff to a map room.
I don't know if I'm being punked here. The Mess says, what's Dreamland? Dreamland is the RetroBlasting podcast. So it's our podcast that Aaron and I do. And we've been unable to record one for a while because of craziness. Jonathan Rowe, thanks for the super chat. He says, I believe you missed my last chat. I greatly apologize. I'm going back.
It's a shame that they disappear that fast.
They disappear off my screen, and so...
That's Scuba Pete. Did we get that one?
Did I...
Here, I'll find it. You knit. I'll find it.
What?
Hold on. I'll find it. Say something.
So...
Okay.
I don't...
Jonathan Rowe, I want to make a Star Wars display, but don't have any originals, just Power of the Force 2. Do you have a preferred site to buy or just eBay? Jonathan, you want to be on some Star Wars groups like the Rebel Scum Classifieds on their message board, rebelscum.com's Vintage Classifieds on their message board. You also want to keep checking eBay with those saved searches. You want to be on as many Instagram or Facebook toy groups that are reputable as you can find. I would recommend the Facebook group Plastic Galaxy, run by Seth Hastings. I would also recommend Reclaimers Vintage Toys, run by Matt Swafford. And then occasionally on eBay, you want to check sites like Yojo Outlet and Museum Center. Those are the best places to be.
I'm going to pull up the other thing on my phone so that I don't miss any more super chats. Dave TK1973 says, thank you, by the way, for the super chat and for the sweet compliment. He says, Melinda's cute, a nerd, funny, and more importantly, a metalhead. Michael, do you realize just how lucky you are?
Yeah, I do realize just how lucky I am. That's why I just don't ever, want to be out there in the dating scene again. Ever. I'm done.
So, will Indiana interview with Zodak?
I mean, he can, yeah. Zodak's next interview is going to be with Mego Superman. So Superman from the Mego line will be Zodak's next interview. Just giving you guys a little preview of that.
My question to you is, and to all of you guys too, how do you feel about, like, let's say that Harrison Ford decides he doesn't want to do the next movie, and people have talked about this forever, but how do you feel about recasting in him and just sort of continuing it on almost like a serial type series, like the movie was originally based on, that kind of a thing.
Well, that's where it's gotten complicated because Harrison Ford himself has come out and said he doesn't want the role recast.
Well, it's not really just about Harrison.
It's not just about Harrison.
Let's just talk about what we think. Like, I feel like, Red Letter Media does a really interesting review. I love their stuff anyway. They're very sarcastic, but they talk about, that, and I agree with them wholeheartedly that Indiana Jones is not so much a character as a costume. So, like, his character, yeah, he has some character traits, but I mean, really, that's why he has to wear that hat and that jacket and all of those props in every single scene, is because you want to project yourself into that character and sort of see yourself as doing that. And I feel like that would mean that you could have almost like a 007 type of situation where you could recast.
Yes, you could. Although some people are bringing up a good point in the chat, which is all of us have said we want to see new stuff come out of Hollywood, right?
So 100%. Like, I'm not arguing for that. Like, I think just come up with a new character. But,
right. Which to my point, we have still not gotten a good Tomb Raider movie.
Agreed.
And Tomb Raider, as you know, I'm a huge, huge fan of. And they need a really, really, truly good Lara Croft Tomb Raider movie to finally step up. Because all they've had are misfires this whole time. That would be what I'd want to see more than an Indiana Jones 6 or anything like that.
People are saying Tom Selleck is still around. I really do wish that we had seen Tom Selleck in this role. I think he would have been absolutely amazing as Indiana Jones. People are mentioning Chris Pratt, Idris Elba. I kind of feel like it really is open for anyone who's a good actor and who's willing to do the stunts and is young enough to do the stunts, but old enough to pull off the experience. You can't have a 20-year-old in this role.
Somebody just asked about the Tales of the Golden Monkey series. I have it on DVD here. I have not yet watched it, but I'll get back to you.
Master Sun 42, thanks a lot for the super chat. Says, is it true that Harrison Ford was sick the day he was supposed to fight the swordman, so he improvised and pulled out the gun and shot him?
Yes. There was supposed to be a choreographed fight between the swordsman and Indy, and Indy was going to pull out his whip, and there's footage of this that was shot. We cut it together, the brief clips that they were. We cut them together for our Dragon Con presentation. If you go and watch our Indiana Jones Dragon Con presentation video, you'll see those clips cut together. But unfortunately, Harrison Ford ate the local food. That's not a joke. That's literally what happened. He and a number of the crew went out to the local restaurants. Spielberg was paranoid about everything, so he ate out of cold Chef Boyardee cans that were flown in, and he taped his mouth shut in the shower so he wouldn't accidentally
I'm sure he's
going
to come through this whole COVID-19 thing.
So
perfectly.
it was bottled water and Chef Boyardee cold out of the can. But Harrison went out, tasted the local cuisine with John Rhys Davies and a number of others, and they all started getting sick at different times. And he was sick the day of that shoot, and you can actually see him in the scene flop sweating. Like he's literally breaking a fever right there in the scene. John Rhys Davies made the comment during a DVD interview a few years ago. He's not fully convinced he didn't have cholera, like full-blown cholera, during the shoot as well. But Harrison Ford had the runs, as they call it, and he was miserable, and he said, "Can I please just pull out my gun and shoot this guy, because I'm not going to make it through this day." And that's what they did, and it ended up getting the biggest laugh in the film. So the rest is history.
Keith Holmesley points out that Parker Stevens would make a great Harrison Ford stand-in. I agree, and I also have to say this. We had breakfast with Parker Stevens.
We did.
And he is just a delight. He truly is. Like, I met, he and Dirk Benedict, who are friends, were at this convention, Pensacon, and I hung out with Dirk Benedict and Parker Stevens, and
is it Stevenson?
Is it? I think it is Stevenson, Parker Stevenson. But anyway, he wrote Parker Stevens. That's why I kept saying it, because I was like, am I wrong? But anyway, he's so amazingly kind, and generous, and he would just sit and talk, and then the next morning he came downstairs and the only open seat was next to us, and I'm sure he was looking at us going, oh God, I don't want to sit next to fans, but we left him alone. But then he sort of just started talking to us. Like he's just amazing. So if you ever get the chance to meet him, a great guy.
Christopher, the other guy's name is Sam Elliott with the famous mustache. So it's Tom Selleck and Sam Elliott.
Yeah, married to Kirstie Alley. They talked a lot about Kirstie Alley while I was hanging out with them while Dirk Benedict smoked cigars. Not fans. She apparently was not a fan of the cigar smoking. So
right.
Anyway, Dirk Benedict complimented my teeth. Do you remember that?
Yes, because he's talked about how because of his background in his childhood growing up around horses, the first thing he looks at on anybody are their teeth.
The way he said it, it was very sweet.
It was very sweet. He wasn't like, "Hey, I'd sell you if you were a horse."
Jonathan Rowe, thank you for the super chat. He says, "Did you see Netflix Voltron even with robot design?"
No, I did not watch the Netflix Legendary Defender show. I didn't boycott it or anything. It's just, if I'm not somebody that boycotts something, it's just like anything else. If I see something and it doesn't grab my attention and I'm not interested, then I just forget about it and don't invest my time in watching it. So I just didn't watch it. I was working on other videos and I just never.
It's not like you have a shortage of things to watch.
Right, exactly.
So let's see. Let me go back over here real quick. Some folks have asked how much a hat like that would cost.
Well, these
you'd
hats,
have to go check the
yeah,
website.
you'd have to check the cost now. You have to remember, I bought this hat 15 years ago, and prices were a lot different then. And also, Steve Delk wasn't the hatter of Indiana Jones 4 then either, and now it's John Penman's thing, and John is a very successful hatter. If you want a hat of this quality, you got to go through Penman hats. There's no other choice.
Rich Hawkins says, "What's your opinion of Sean Connery as Indy's father?"
I didn't have a problem with Sean Connery in the role. I thought he elevated the material. I thought he did a really good job. He's one of the most enjoyable parts of the film. He did his job in the movie, and I'm sure he was eager to play a comedic role for once. My whole thing with the movie in general was this was when they started visualizing Indiana Jones and then verbalizing it as, quote, that goofy archaeologist.
Yeah.
And he wasn't really that until that movie. And everybody in that movie was goofy.
Right.
I mean,
which is why I didn't really like it.
Yeah, it became very Police Academy almost with the way they did things. And it never did sit right with me. I never did figure out why it didn't have that serious Raiders atmosphere to it. So
Vankman says, "Can Michael do a Sean Connery impression?" You betcha.
I can?
I've heard you do it.
No, I haven't perfected.
He hasn't practiced it recently, but I've heard him like the standard one that everyone does.
Maybe the next live
from
stream.
The Rock.
Goldfinger. Yeah. Yeah. I haven't practiced that in a while.
Let's see. Michael, how come you walked out of Revenge of the Sith? I know it was dark.
How come I what?
Walked out of Revenge of the Sith.
I didn't walk out of Revenge of the Sith.
Okay.
I didn't walk out of Revenge of the Sith.
He walked out when the movie was over.
I walked out when the movie was over, but I didn't walk out of Revenge of the Sith. I walked out of Highlander 4.
I can't believe you walked into Highlander 4.
My friends wanted to go.
I thought you were going to say I was drunk, because I was going to say, no, you weren't.
My friends wanted to go in college, and I was like, guys, really? Why? And
Monkey Boy Cloth Cat, thank you very much for the super chat with no question attached. That's like no strings attached. Just Matt says, "We're not going until Melinda finishes the scarf." Well, we're all going to be here a really long time because I am not a fast knitter.
George says, Sean Connery was great in The Man Who Would Be King. You are correct, sir. That's a great film.
Wasn't he in that the Christian Slater movie you love so much, The Name of the Rose?
Name of the Rose. That's another good one that he was in. John Connery's been in a lot of great films. He's just one of those actors. I mean, he's good.
He is one of those actors. Okay, so Guts says, I was about to quote Melinda. You went to see Highlander 4. Scott, thank you very much for the super chat. He says, do you suppose Professor Jones' course was popular because the students knew he ditches class for weeks at a time and it's an easy A? Yes, I do.
Somebody just said, Brett just said, if Lucas jumped the shark with Return of the Jedi in 83, it's odd that he was still on his game with Temple of Doom in 84. Well, yeah, that's one way to look at it, but keep in mind that even he admits he was going through a divorce in 84 and he was very grumpy. And he found his edge in his domestic situation, I guess is the best way to put it. And he had Steven Spielberg working with him, so he wasn't on his own, doing Ewok stuff. So,
Skookum Trooper says, Michael, do you have a good hat box?
Yeah, I have a few hat boxes from Penman and from Art Fawcett. Art made my Alan Quartermain hat. I have a replica of Stuart Granger's hat from the 1950 King Solomon's Mines. And so
Can you tell that Michael has an affinity for this genre of film?
I do like them. I do. So.
That's good. Okay, so let's see. The Wind and the Lion is an underrated Sean Connery film, according to Zathras61.
Oh, yeah, The Wind and the Lion. That's the one with Candice Bergen when she was real young, and he plays like a Bedouin. Warrior. Yeah, I need to revisit that movie. I haven't seen that in a long time.
Vinkman says, what angered you the most about The Revenge of the Sith, and why do you feel it's the worst of the prequels?
Because it's the one that gets closest to the original trilogy while continuing to make continuity problems, continuing to break the continuity. Leia's mother dying literally in childbirth is not Leia remembering her mother. And I don't want to hear the excuse, well, it was the Force, okay? Stop using that excuse for every single problem in Star Wars. It was the Force. Shut up.
Every time I think about that scene, I think about Dr. Ball.
Yeah, from
the skit from Robot Chicken. And if you haven't seen it, go look up Robot Chicken Dr. Ball.
Yeah.
It is the funniest thing I've ever seen, and it is exactly how I felt when I saw them say that she died of a broken heart. She lost the will to live. I can't do it justice.
And then he looks at the guy and he says, "What was your medical degree in poetry?"
Oh my God.
I just don't, when Luke says to her, "Do you remember your real mother?" He's not asking her a loaded question. He's being literal. And she says, she died when I was very young.
Not like 3 seconds old.
Not 3 seconds old. So it's things like that that really put Revenge of the Sith on the back foot with me.
Wolfie, thank you very much for the generous super chat. He says, Michael, as a fellow PC gamer, did you get a chance to play out Battlefield 1? Loved the Lawrence Easter eggs in it, even though I'm sure it was lost on most players. Here's to a new indie PC game someday. Stay safe, you guys.
Yeah, Wolfie, I did play Battlefield 1 with the Lawrence-ish levels, and I was really thrilled playing those campaigns. I really had a fun time playing those. Too brief. The whole campaign of Battlefield was too brief because it's too focused on multiplayer. But I did have a really good... Yeah, but I had a really good time playing them when I was playing them.
Yeah, that was a real shame to me. It seemed like that would have been a really cool game to see, as a single player.
It had some, but not enough.
Tim Hayes says, it's funny how Gremlins and Temple of Doom paved the way for PG-13 rating, but yet both films retained their PG ratings.
Yeah.
That is an interesting story of how those films kind of sparked the whole PG-13 thing.
Yeah.
In all caps, that's not how the Force works. Christopher Perez says Marky Mark should be the new voice of Yoda.
Nice. That would be funny.
Let's see. I mean, if you're gonna go, just go all the way with it. Robot Chicken and Family Guy are by far the best Star Wars parodies without being insulting to the fandom. I agree.
Well, it's because they're saying what we're thinking.
I feel like they poke fun at it, but it's not. You know what else is really good? And I know other people mentioned earlier the whole Indiana Jones Lego video games and the movies and stuff like that. I really think that my favorite Lego video game is the Star Wars Lego video game, and I'm waiting. I don't know if they'll ever put it out because of Disney. I don't know if they're going to put it out again on like a newer system. I think you had it on
PS. No, I had it on PC.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it just seems like that would be so amazingly fun to play. Like I actually love the prequels as a video game in the Lego system. What is his name? Grievous. General Grievous. Most fun character ever to play in that Lego video game. Oh my god, he's amazing. And it's funny. It doesn't make fun of the source material, but it has fun with it, which is kind of nice. Lego Star Wars, yes. Lego Star Wars needs to be on the Switch. It needs to. That would make me very happy. Okay. I'm going to skip down here. Paramount Investigation says, "Hey, Michael, did you like King Solomon's Mines? I couldn't personally get into it. I always thought it was an attempt to rip off Indiana Jones."
You're thinking of the Richard Chamberlain King Solomon's Mines from 1985. I'm talking about the 1950 King Solomon's Mines from with Stuart Granger from MGM. There have actually been a number of King Solomon's Mines films. There was one in 1934 or 6. I can't remember exactly what year, but it was in the 30s, and that one is well known. And then there was one with Patrick Swayze. For the Hallmark Channel that was done in the early 2000s that stars Alison Doody, who played Elsa in Last Crusade. So there's been a number of King Solomon's Mines films. My favorite, of course, is the Stuart Granger version with Deborah Kerr. And that's the hat that I had replicated from Art Fawcett. So.
Michael Johnson asks, "Have you visited any of the Indy locations?"
No, we've already answered that.
Okay, sorry. Didn't know. Who is the better adventurer? Indiana Jones, Nathan Drake, Lara Croft, or Brendan Fraser?
I mean, I think Indiana Jones will always be the coolest one for me because he's set in the 30s. Not Crystal Skull notwithstanding.
Nathan Drake's the video game guy, right?
He's the Uncharted guy, and then a close second for me is Lara, just because she found a way to make the present day interesting for me. So.
I agree with that myself. Let's see. Raiders had swagger. Temple of Doom has edge. Last Crusade had slapstick.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate.
I think that's correct. Simon Park says, "Michael, have you ever read Frank Darabont's original screenplay for Indy 4, The City of the Gods?"
I have not read that. As a matter of fact, I think that Alan Quartermain hat is right down here in the studio. Hold on.
Drink, everyone, I guess. So, look, see, I have not made that much progress in the time that I've been working, but I've done like 4 rows. So, that's something, I guess. It pays to just be able to sit and hang out. It's almost like I'm sitting and hanging out with you guys, on my couch upstairs, and we're talking about movies. It's kind of cool. Let's see. Find some cool questions that you guys are asking. Let's see. I'm looking for one that I can answer. Throw me a softball question, guys. Because I am not the Indiana Jones expert that Michael is. Any chance of a cat cameo in this stream? Well, I guess I could go get a cat. Which cat should I get? We've got Kirby, Sasha, Winston, and Jasper. I assume Jasper would probably be the most popular, but maybe I'm wrong. He's certainly the most manageable to bring down here. Where is my yarn from? Again, it's from Nitpicks and a place called Jameson's, which has a great name.
So this is the Alan Quatermain hat from King Solomon's Mines. Excuse me.
Classy.
You know what? It's live. What can you do? But this has the added quirk of having a double stacked brim, which was something that was used in the late 19th century by safari explorers. But yeah, that's the Stuart Granger Alan Quatermain hat.
Eric says, just talk about Star Trek the Motion Picture. I could talk about Star Trek the Motion Picture. Kirk Unit. Why do you not provide the information?
I don't know if they can hear you if you're talking away from your microphone.
Yeah, they can hear me. You can hear me. Did Michael eat Tim Tams again? Michael regularly eats Tim Tams, and it's hard to keep them in the house.
And that is why my indie pants are starting to be a little tight in the waist. I gotta watch those Tim Tams.
Juan says, Melinda's Cats greater than the Cats movies. Well, I mean, the Cats movie got panned, so that's nice to know.
Vinkman's asking why you haven't brought a cat on camera yet.
Well, I can go take care of that if you would like. Let me cap off my knitting needle so that no one gets stabbed. All right, people are saying Kirby, but let me just tell you, I can't get Kirby to come down here because he completely freaks out. He thinks that this is Narnia, and he like will take my arm off. Whereas Jasper,
you think so? You think?
I know so. He's done it before. The last time I brought him down here, he clawed my arm because he was freaking out. He gets, Do you want me
to try with Kirby?
Bring Kirby down.
Try bringing Kirby down here. Just try.
All right, here. I am going to let you look at these questions. So you have some questions. Can you see them?
Yeah, I can see them. Let's see. Is it true that Raiders was initially planned to be Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark? My understanding was always that all the movies were planned to be Raiders of the something. My understanding was that they were going to be the Raiders movies. So it was going to be Raiders of the Temple of Doom. By the time they got to Temple of Doom, they changed it to Indiana Jones. So Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade works real well. But that was always the impression I got, was that it was supposed to be Raiders of the whatever. And then they headlined Indiana Jones as the character. So someone's asking if it was a mistake making Marion so young in their affair backstory. Seems creepy. They wrote it that way in Raiders for a number of reasons, because Indiana Jones was also supposed to have an alcohol problem. If you read the novelization of Raiders of the Lost Ark, he's even referred to as Jones throughout the whole book. He's not referred to as Indy. Spielberg and Lucas kind of pushed back and forth on that. Lucas wanted the edgier stuff, Spielberg didn't, and they ended up meeting in the middle somewhere. So there's only hints of it. Well, that's not near camera.
It's okay. Can you see him?
That's Kirby. Hi, Kirby.
He was asleep. He's mad that I woke him up from his window seat.
Well, go show him to camera. Just don't get him close enough that his nose can get in camera.
Let go of my shirt, buddy. Say hello. He's like, I'm unimpressed. Poor baby. He's like, I don't know where I am. What is this place? Yes, I love you too.
I have no idea where the chat is.
I'll get it back.
Okay.
You have to click.
All right, here we go. Chat window. Let's see. Yeah, Kirby is a Norwegian forest cat. No, I found it. Yeah, the Nazi with the melting face at the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark. That's Jasper.
Jasper's growing up. He was also asleep.
Yeah, those actors always ended up playing interesting roles. Like the guy that played Dietrich, Wolf Collar, he ended up in a number of films as a German military person, not just World War II, sometimes even World War One. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he might have even been the fighter ace that fought against Tom Selleck in High Road to China, if I remember correctly. I need to go watch that again. It's been too long.
D. Crouch, thank you for the super chat. He says, I may have missed y'all saying this, but have you seen the deep fake where they replace Harrison Ford with Tom Selleck?
I have not seen that one, so I need to watch that. I've seen a number of the deep fakes, but I'm excited to see that one. That sounds pretty good.
Let's see.
The art for our intros is in the credits of every video. Our logo artist is named in the credits of every video we do.
Gut says, I was never a fan of cats. Dogs give us more, yet get respected less in general. I don't know about that. I think all animals are awesome. I love dogs too. We just don't have the ability to take care of a dog in our lives. But I think,
well, it's also the whole phrasing, dogs give us more. How do you measure that?
I mean, I don't think it's about what they give us. I think it's, kind of what how we interact with them. These guys are just like our little furry housemates.
He's getting a little rambunctious.
He is. Email address.
George,
LOL.
yeah, I'm going to be collaborating with Analog Toys tomorrow, as a matter of fact. We're doing the next Pallet Talk, I believe, tomorrow, I think. So, yeah, that'll be tomorrow. And then, let's see here. I'm not really... you know what? I'd have to go back and look. It's been 20 years since I bought this jacket from Wested, so I'm not quite sure what the actual leather is. The castle sitting next to the cat's lair is the Black Star Ice Castle. We've done a video about it. You can look that up on YouTube.
Did you get these super chats already?
I think so. This is the latest one. Who is more influential as a director, Spielberg, Lucas, Wells, or Kurosawa? I would say Kurosawa more than any of them, but that's just my bias. Kurosawa, then Wells, then Lucas, then Spielberg. Spielberg was popular, but I do not believe Spielberg has been influential in terms of style, techniques, production workflow, or anything like that. Spielberg is very much an establishment company man who does his job very, very well, and he has passion for the stories he tells, but I don't think he's changed the movie industry in any way.
Robert Pearson says, have you seen it pointed out that the scene when Indy steals the truck and hides in the market that Tote is no longer in the Nazi's car, but it's a dummy wearing his clothes? Yep.
Yes, we point that out in our Dragon Con presentation. Yeah. Have you also noticed the monkey that gets an erection? Not a lot of people notice that one. I'm just going to leave that out there like a loaded gun.
Pun intended. Let's see. People are still arguing cats versus dogs, dude. What? We don't have to pick. Like,
yeah, really.
You can get whatever kind of friend you want to have. Like, lots of animals need rescuing and
yeah,
love.
Exactly.
So whatever resonates with you, man. But like, they all
exactly.
They all need our help.
It's not a competition.
And definitely right now, like, do not get rid of your pets. They can't give you the coronavirus. Just heads up.
Yeah, I've seen Zulu. Good movie. Have it on Blu-ray. Really, really enjoy films from that era or set in that period of time. Somebody else asked me, Young Indiana Jones TV series. I answered this earlier, but I think it's a good show. I feel like it was better with the older Indy, the older young
Do you have a
Indy.
favorite episode? Somebody asked.
I
that
liked
earlier.
the stuff when he was in World War One. All that stuff I think is some of the strongest. A lot of the other stuff gets a little too sugary, but that stuff was really really good.
Let's see. Are Norwegian and Maine Coon cats better for living with people with cat allergies?
I'm the poster child for cat allergies. I had to get shots as a kid. We thought I couldn't live around cats, and then Melinda found this breed, and yes, they don't bother me at all.
I think the key is to sort of be around the cat before you adopt, if you do have an allergy. So.
Yes, Alf is just fine after his Jasper attack a few live streams ago.
So let's see what else we got here. My sister just asked me what I'm watching with the monkey erection comment. Sorry about that. Yeah, it's a weird scene that, like, when you see it, did you leave it in the presentation?
Yeah, it's in the presentation.
It's in our presentation, our Dragon Con presentation on Indiana Jones. That
yeah, it's literally there. I'm not being crude for the sake of crudity. I'm telling you, it's in the movie. Go watch our presentation from Dragon Con where we show the footage and point it out. It's unmistakable.
Saturday Morning Fan says, "What did you think of Romancing the Stone and Jewel of the Nile? Both are indie type films."
Well, I loved Romancing the Stone. I thought it was. I own that on Blu-ray. I think it's just a really fun movie. I grew up watching it. I love Jack T. Colton as a character. It is a different kind of film. It is taking the romantic comedy and Indiana Jones and putting them together.
I would say my favorite of this genre is High Road to China.
Yeah.
And like even more than Indiana Jones. Please don't lambast me for that, but I guess part of it is just that I really like the mood and the tone and the music of that movie. It is kind of a romance, but it's also an adventure movie, and it's also got Tom Selleck, who I just
in his Magnum days.
Oh my God, just so amazing.
And also, High Road is set very much after World War One, but far before World War Two. So Raiders is like in the ramp-up years to World War II with a very serious kind of thing going on. Whereas High Road is very much in the 20s.
Which is really cool.
Yeah.
It's got that whole Art Deco thing in the earlier part, the whole flapper thing. Like, I just really love that movie.
Yeah.
And if you haven't seen it, you gotta go see it.
Yeah, and he's a biplane pilot, which makes him really cool. And like, there's the whole thing
he's
of
a hopeless drunk. Like, they went there with him, where they kind of
Right.
held back on that with Indy, although they hint at it with Indy, but they never go all the way with it.
Yeah, and I love the fact that his weapon of choice is dismounting the Lewis gun from the wing of the plane and using it as a machine gun. I mean, just great stuff.
Impossible Pie says, "Sorry, just got here. Is the Big Bang Theory correct about Raiders of the Lost Ark?" I don't know.
That's the one where Miriam Bialik says to... Is that Bialik?
Bialik.
Bialik.
Mayim Bialik.
Mayim Bialik, sorry. Where she says to Sheldon that Raiders is a pointless movie because Indy serves no purpose. Do you remember that one?
Yeah, vaguely.
I tend to not get bent out of shape about it, but I also disagree in large part because he does actually affect the way things go. I mean, yeah, if you're being cynical, eventually they might have stumbled over the Ark without Indy finding it first. But it took Indy to figure out all the stuff to find the Ark, and then he had to go physically rescue it and all that kind of stuff. So no, I don't think Indy's inconsequential to the story. That's like a lot of people have argued that Marty McFly is a pointless character in Back to the Future because he doesn't grow.
But see, here's the thing is, I feel like both of those, more so with Indy, but I feel like what I said earlier plays in here. Those characters are supposed to be there almost like blanks that you project yourself onto, and you're along for the roller coaster ride of the movie. And so that may be why they don't make a lot of big decisions that affect the plot, because they, like you, it's almost like, and you're going to hate this, but the Neverending Story, where he's kind of there and he's sort of passively weirdly influencing the movie. I don't know if that makes sense, but We have a couple super chats here. Dusty, thank you for the super chat. He says, so G.I. Joe Classified, we can all agree, is a hot mess, but it looks like they did well with Destro, though. So maybe there is hope with that line?
Look, I've had a few people say this to me about the Destro thing. Oh, Destro looks okay. Snake Eyes looked okay. And I want to look at them and say, guys, have you ever had a friend that you let them help work on your car, but they didn't know anything about mechanics and they botched it up? And so then you go, well, the next time I need to work on my car, I'm definitely going to... Your friend has proven that they're unreliable, okay? So when Roadblock, Duke, and Scarlet are already terrible, but now people are saying, but I'm going to stick with this because 2 out of the 5 figures were okay, I'm not putting my money in that. No. They have proven that this line is going to be hit or miss all the way through. They're not going to course correct. So I'm out. I'm out before I've wasted any money. If you want to take a chance on that, go ahead, but it is on you.
I have to read several comments that came out of the whole Big Bang Theory question. So Robert Pearson says, no, it's not true. Marion would be dead or severely burnt up by Tote and her bar for a start.
Right.
And then someone else says, that's right, he saved Marion. And then Bunyan Snipe says, Big Bang Theory is wrong about everything. Yes, they are. Jonathan Rose says, will you have a booth at North Carolina Toy Con?
Yes, we will be back at North Carolina Toy Con in September, God willing. Let's see. Somebody says the Tommy gun is cooler. Guys, this stuff isn't a competition. The Lewis gun is cool. The Tommy gun is cool. Let's stop fighting on non-fights. Let's not create fights where there aren't any. You like the Tommy gun? Awesome. I like the Tommy gun. This person likes the Lewis gun. That's also great. I also like the Lewis gun. You can like both.
No. You have to pick. Why was there never an Indiana Jones cartoon in the 80s? They made a comic, but no cartoon.
It's been a great question. I don't know why there wasn't an Indiana.
It seems like it would have been a great...
It would have been a great cartoon. We talked about that in our presentation. Indiana Jones should have had a cartoon all day long. And it
would have been so easy to come up with cool plots.
Exactly.
He could go on weird adventures.
It would have been a lot better than that Droids and Ewoks thing.
Or the Mr. T cartoon, or the Karate Kid cartoon.
My point is Lucas was involved in Droids Ewoks.
Right. My point is that those shows were made from things that weren't about people traveling around the world, and they turned them into things about traveling around the world. Right. Like Karate Kid doesn't need to travel around the world. Right. But like Indiana Jones could easily travel around the world and go to cool places, and even Rambo did that. Like where you could, Indiana Jones legitimately could go to all these other countries. You could start talking about geography and learning about other cultures, and have a fun, weird artifact too thrown in there.
What is your chase? I don't know what that means.
Has Michael ever randomly dressed like Indiana Jones and gone to the store?
No, I've never.
Not like a grocery store, but we've gone places when you were in this outfit that were normal places.
Well, a lot of times, like there are times where it's raining and I'll have my hat and I'll grab a leather jacket. Not necessarily this one because...
Well, I've seen you wear this jacket and this hat, but not the rest of this. Right. So like with jeans or like it may be khaki pants. Right. So it kind of looks like Indiana Jones, but that goes back to what we were saying before where you've kind of got covert costuming. Right. So Keith says, Michael, did you like my custom Snake Eyes?
Yeah, Keith, when I saw the pictures of it, I thought it was great. Yeah.
Dilios of Sparta says, has Abner Ravenwood ever been depicted in any expanded indie literature?
I honestly don't know the answer to that. I haven't read all the comic books for indie, nor all of the novels. Again, my focus back in the day when I was a teenager, when I wouldn't have had my own money for one. My focus was generally on the Star Wars thing back then. Indie was my second love, but with Indie, I was always invested in trying to get the stuff he wore. It was less about the licensed fiction.
Simon Parkin, thank you very much for the super chat. He says, all the best from the UK. RetroBlasting is always informative and entertaining. The fans are definitely doing the best work. Have you ever read any of the Bantam Books novels from the 90s?
Yeah, we talked about that earlier. Yeah, I read a few of them, and they weren't bad. I don't recall having any, horrible memories of them.
The only thing I remember are those choose your own adventure books from the 80s.
Right.
And, like, I did read, it seems like I read, like, a weird, oh, I remember the only film adaptation book like that I ever read was Adventures in Babysitting. How
Right.
random is that?
Well, Jody, that's what I'm talking about. People always think if you wear a broad brim hat that you're a cowboy. That happens to us too. That happens to me when I wear this hat, which is not a cowboy hat at all.
Oh, you really want to get Michael pissed off is to like have those the hipster hats that people wear and then everyone calls them fedoras.
Yeah, the trilbies.
The trilbies,
Yeah,
but they're
trilbies
not trilbies.
and fedoras
I mean,
are not
they're
the
not
same.
fedoras. So.
Yeah.
All right. So Karate Kid cartoon had them after a magic shrine that granted wishes. Yeah, I know. It's completely ridiculous. So I have to assume it's a licensing thing, right?
Yeah,
that they
it
didn't
has
do the
to be.
cartoon.
Right.
So
Yeah. Or just Lucas wasn't interested in pursuing it at the time.
right. Okay, so I think when he was talking about chasers, he was saying, what chaser do you use after you do a shot?
Oh.
I think I could be wrong.
I don't.
He doesn't. Neither do I.
I don't chase.
You know what? When I was like 12 and my dad was like drinking whiskey in the kitchen and I walked in and I was looking at it, he goes, "You want some?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "All right, but if you're going to take a shot, you have to take a shot like a man. And you can't use a chaser." And I'm like, all right. So I did it, and that is the way you have to do it.
And also I don't mix it. I just drink it neat.
Right. Well, I mean, having had a lot of like watered down drinks and horrible mixed drinks, just cut to the chase, pun intended,
Right.
and just drink the liquor straight. You'll get more bang for your buck at a bar for sure. If it's good bourbon, you don't need a chaser. That's right. If it's crappy, then I like to do a Dr. Pepper. Someone said that actually is a really good chaser.
Sixto, yeah, I'd love to see Mask rebooted with toys. And I'd also, as I've said this in every live stream, I'd like to see them do a commemorative Silverhawks line. I would like to see some toy re-releases. I'm not necessarily up for seeing new visual content. Like I don't want TV shows or movies or anything, but just a collector's toy line, yeah.
Okay. So, sorry. Kind of at a weird angle here. Tim wrote, like a man? Yeah, well, it was the 80s, and it was my dad who was, very military, so...
Yeah.
Man of Action says, Mike and Melinda, are you a fan of weekly serials like The Lone Ranger, Crimson Ghost, Roy Rogers, and The Rocket Men?
Yeah, I've watched all the Zorro ones, so like Zorro's Fighting Legion and Zorro Rides Again. I've watched a number of the Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon ones. I own the Superman serial with Kirk Allen and the Batman serial from the 40s. So yeah, I've watched a number of them. I like them just fine. But again, it's like anything else, carving out the time to sit down and watch them. And then for me, it really boils down to sitting down to watch them. If I'm going to spend that much time watching something, I have to make sure that a video is happening at the other end. That's just the way it works for me these days. Such is my life.
Michael Turner asks, have you ever seen Zulu?
Yeah, I've already answered that.
Okay. The Fortnite King says, Michael, do you think that Star Wars is better than Indiana Jones?
They're not comparable. They're not. I love it when people are like, is Han Solo better than Indiana Jones, or who's the best? I'm like, they're not comparable characters. They don't exist in even the same worlds. So I don't put them in competition with one another. That's like when I was a kid, I grew up loving Star Wars and Star Trek. I never saw them as oppositional. I saw them as completely separate worlds, and they both had something to bring to the table.
I personally think, I don't know if I'd say it's better, but I think that Star Wars, the original trilogy, resonates more with more people, possibly because of its more, like, archetypes of like the whole hero's journey.
Star
and all
Wars
that kind of stuff.
resonates with more people because Star Wars focuses on emotions and not, science. And the problem,
Well, I don't know that Indiana Jones focuses on science.
I'm not talking about science. I'm talking about Star Trek versus Star Wars.
Oh, well, I'm just talking about those two things. So, like, you've got more of an action movie that's, versus sort of, it is about emotions and a personal journey thing.
Look, I love the Star Wars trilogy, but people that sit around and they are numerous and they're like, Star Trek is boring. And I'm just like, I don't.
Well, you're never going to hear me say that.
I don't have the patience to have this conversation. You know what I mean? Like, I just
So your
don't.
answer to them is, so is your face.
Or your mother. Like, I just don't. It's
Werewolf by Lunchtime. I love that name. Do you have any Charlie's Angels toys?
No, the stuff from the 70s was really cool. And I wish that I had some of it because I've seen that playset of their house or whatever. It's amazing, but I don't have any of it yet.
The Spawn 67 says, Melinda, what are your thoughts on the Super 7 heavy metal figures, King Diamond, Slayer, Iron Maiden, etc.? I haven't seen them. I'm not a big action figure collector myself, but I think it's an interesting idea. It clearly shows that those things are definitely for adults. I think that's kind of funny. Let's see. I want to kind of scroll back. Got some older questions that are still here in the queue. I don't know if you've answered this already, Michael, but Michael Johnson asked, did you ever play Rick Dangerous, a game based on Raiders? I think the same company made Tomb Raider.
I never did play Rick Dangerous, no.
Was it wise to include the backstory of Marion being super young when Indy had an affair
We already
with
talked
her?
about that while you were upstairs.
Okay. Do you think that Michael will ever get the three-piece suit in the War in Raiders and in Holy Grail, because you can add a hat with that and you'd be casual Indy? LOL.
Yeah, the suit that he wears. It's also the sort of sport coat he wears at the dinner in Temple of Doom.
Oh, right, yeah.
I like the sport coat a lot. I'm not as big on the whole suit.
Well, he also has that weird tweed.
That's what they're talking
That's
about.
it? Okay. See, I'm not an expert. All right, so Alan Dawson, just wondering do you have the sunburst tie worn by John Rhys Davies as Sala in The Last Crusade?
No, I don't. I think Magnoli sells it, though. I don't have it.
Matt says, did the monkey that came with the Streets of Cairo have an erection?
No, no.
Okay, let's go over here. Pull this up. Keith says, I want the Thundar figures because Melinda has them. Well, I am a trendsetter. Howie says, Star Trek is for intellectuals. I
Not anymore.
I think, well, classic Trek is...
Classic Trek is, but the new stuff
can be, but not necessarily. I mean, the original series, while still smart and it does make you think, it's also kind of campy and certainly
my point is that people who don't like intellectual stuff, who aren't giving Wrath of Khan a chance, are missing out big time.
100%, yeah.
They're missing out on one of the greatest science fiction action movies of all time. But they're the fools, not me. I haven't missed out, so I'm all right.
Let's see. People are talking about you getting me the Golden Girls figures.
Yeah, I'm still trying to get B. Arthur and Blanche.
Yeah. Let's see. Michael, have you started to watch G.I. Joe, a real ARH on YouTube since Hasbro has made them available for free to stream?
I already own all of them on DVD, so I when they said that, I was like, oh, that's cool for people that don't own it. I own all of it already because I love physical media, so I'm good.
Jonathan Rowe, thank you for the super chat. He says, is Pitfall an indie ripoff?
It's indie inspired. I did enjoy Pitfall on the Atari 2600 a lot more than I enjoyed the Raiders of the Lost Ark game. I'll tell you that. I pretended I was playing Indiana Jones, but no, I don't think it's. I think it's a genre. It's in the same genre, but it is not a ripoff of indie.
People are freaking out because I said I'm not an action figure collector.
Well, she's not.
I'm
I
not.
am.
I mean, Michael's got enough action figures for everyone.
Right. She doesn't
So-
have to collect them because I've already collected them.
But like I never, even when I was a kid, I never liked like She-Ra and that whole line. Like I never got into that. I never had them as kids. So for me, like I have Barbies and I have My Little Ponies, but I kind of skipped that whole thing. And so it's just not my thing. But that's okay.
Right.
Like I said, Michael's got plenty. So there's no judgment, believe me. Let's see. Bless you, Melinda and Michael, for doing this. It takes my mind away for a bit. Well, yeah, I mean that's kind of why we've moved this to a weekly thing because
It's tough out there for all of us right now, and some more than others, and we recognize that, and we just wanted to make ourselves more available. We're available, but you know what I mean.
yeah, I think like I'm an introvert and I don't usually go out very much into the world anyway. Like I don't really miss that. So I already worked from home, we both do. And so in a lot of ways this hasn't changed anything for us. However, I will say that knowing that you can't go outside is different than choosing not to go outside and go like we would frequently go to like Second and Charles or even Target and various used bookstores and different stuff like that around town just to kind of look around, see what they've got, and get out of the house for a little while, go out to eat.
Mm-hmm.
So not being able to do any of those things does kind of put that claustrophobic feeling on things. And so I think a lot of people, celebrities, all kinds of people are out in the world, you know, trying to get online and sort of just hang out with people so that people know that we're all in this together, like we're all stuck inside. So, you know, let's use all of this technology that we have to try to feel more connected to each other instead of using it to be divisive and you know, tear each other apart like we've been doing for many years. Like let's finally get to the point where it's like, hey, like we can all be on the same team and we're trying to be responsible and do the right thing. So not to get preachy, just to say it is hard.
Yeah, it is. It's really hard. And, you know, even for people, and Jody, thank you for the super chat.
Yes, thank you.
You know, to recognize your recognition. it even for people like Melinda and myself who work from home, everything is still changed. So like we can't just go out for dinner like we used to. You know, we can't just. We're all working through this together, and so it has inspired me to step up my game a little bit. As far as coming up with, you know, things to make videos about and talk about and do and post and stuff and try and keep people's minds engaged a little bit. So
I would love to see RetroBlasting do a review of what is that? BSW cereal? I feel like I'm getting that wrong. I don't know what that is, Timothy. Can you clarify? Sean says, Melinda, please talk more. I'm not sure what else to say, but I'll do my best. Let's see. Carl says, I would love a Cliff Burton action figure. Yeah, me too. I actually would not mind having a Cliff Burton with holding a really cool bass slung low. That would be badass. Let's see.
I should go get that box.
You should go get that box.
I'll go get the box that we have to open.
BSG. Oh, B&W cereal. Black and white cereal?
Oh, he wants us to do like reviews of like.
Oh, he wants us to.
Cereals
Okay.
And the stuff.
Okay. Yeah, you know, I feel like I remember watching the Superman serials with Michael like a few years back, and Lois Lane in that serial was probably one of the only times I didn't find her completely obnoxious. And it's not about any actress playing her, it's just the concept of her character. She just grates on my nerves because she's a quintessential journalist, but not in the cool way. So what are my hobbies? Well, as you saw earlier, I love knitting. I do all kinds of like crafty things. I'm an artist, so when I have time, I get out like things and sketch things and draw things and stuff like that. And usually that's about the extent of it, because once I start doing that stuff, I immediately realize that I'm really tired. And let's see. Other people saying that I totally lost the line. It moved. Jody says, "Do you want a Cliff Burton figure? How's your Spike?" Fine. Let's see.
And I knocked everything over.
This has been sitting outside so that it's COVID free.
Yeah. It's been sitting outside for 2 days.
And when we
three
say
days.
outside, we mean in the garage, safely. George Aitken says, "I had 4 liters of vodka before this chat. Not much of a bottle left." Michael, what's the rarest toy you've ever found at a yard or garage sale for cheap?
As far as value versus price, it was probably that dollar bin of Star Wars figures where I found the Jedi Luke with the painted hair on the molded face, because most of them were painted faces on molded hair, and that was a big win.
Sean says, "Melinda, what did you study in university?" Well, that's kind of long. I have 3 different degrees. I have one in art.
No.
I'm gonna finish my sentence. I have one in I have a master's in forensic anthropology, and then I have a bachelor's in nursing.
Clemens. Okay, so my buddy Clemens said he was sending me a surprise because he's just a great guy like that.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
I'm gonna say thank you too, because I almost bought this recently.
Oh my gosh.
I almost bought this. I'm really glad I didn't.
The entire series of Night Court on DVD.
Amazing. Thank you, truly. Like,
oh my gosh, this is awesome.
I seriously almost bought it on streaming, and Michael always yells at me when I do that. But I really wanted to sit around and watch Night Court because I felt like, man, that's just the best.
Oh my god, like this, dude.
Are you Master Son 42?
Yes, he is.
He says, "I'm glad you like my gift." Yeah, I love this gift.
This is awesome.
This is great.
I cannot wait. I'm watching this today. You know that, right? Like,
yes, we are. We're gonna watch it right after this.
I cannot wait to watch
I'm gonna be knitting.
Yeah,
it's gonna be
awesome.
amazing.
Thank you. Oh man, this was one of the ones that was a huge gap in my TV collection. I did not have it, and this is great.
Yes, Mr. Plinkett would be jealous. You know, I really you can find this season by season on Amazon Prime, but you have to pay for the whole season. But if you guys are, really wanting to watch it along with us, just go ahead and get that.
Oh man, this is so great. My Saturday and Sunday are done. Oh, awesome.
Sweet. It sounds like we're actually going to have a weekend. All right. It sucks because, last night I made homemade pizza, right? And I made the crust. I, literally activated the yeast in the thing, and I, kneaded the dough and, made this pizza, and I was so proud of myself. And we sat down, and then it was we have nothing to watch that either one of us really cared about watching. And it was a bummer, and I really wish that I had been making the pizza for tonight so that we could watch it while we eat.
Whatever we eat while we're watching this, it's going to taste all the sweeter.
That's the thing about COVID-19 is, honestly, you're just thinking about that next meal. What can I have? What's the next snack I can have? And it's not even because you're hungry. It's just because it's a way to break up your day.
So I gotta tell you all something. So I'm convinced that Clemens was frozen. And, Scuba, thank you for the super chat. He says Bull was the best. Yeah, he was. I'm convinced that my friend Clemens was frozen in a Super Soldier project.
Frozen, that's my favorite Madonna song.
And then awakened in, the mid-'80s or 90s or something. But I'm convinced he's older by decades than he actually says he is. And one day I'm going to get him to reveal what top secret military project he was part of.
Christopher Moody says, forensic anthropology is very interesting. Yeah, it was. It was what I really wanted to do as my job. Unfortunately, September 11th kind of changed my life course. But that was my plan, was to go into the FBI. And I have defleshed skeletons, and it's a cool opportunity to sort of help identify unidentified skeletal remains. So it's a very unsung type of job. People always now equate it to bones, which is, although that lady did write one of my textbooks. I have it upstairs, Kathy Reichs, and I saw her at a book convention thing, and I almost took her my forensics book and had her autograph that instead of her novels, which would have been, I think, quite fun. Carl says, buses have stopped in my village. Luckily, I know someone that will get me. Yeah, that's important to be able to get around. Brent Spiner as Bob Wheeler on Night Court was awesome. Was he on Night Court?
He was.
Wow.
Yeah. You shall see. You shall see.
Vinkman says, what's your favorite pizza topping? I personally like sauteed vegetables. I'm a vegetarian. Michael likes plain cheese pizza. Like Home
That's
Alone.
not what I grew up with. I grew up really liking sausage and cheese pizza. That was my thing, and I don't eat that anymore.
Let's see. Carnage says, or maybe Melinda has actually been in the FBI all along. Could be. I did start the whole interview process, so I got through like a couple of rounds, and then September 11th. The Kathy Reichs Bones novels are nothing like the TV show. That is absolutely true. And the Temperance Brennan character, I just have to segue. Sorry, dear. She's very weirdly like kind of, and this is not an insult, but she's very on the spectrum on the TV show. But in the book, she's completely not like that, and she's much more like a Kay Scarpetta. If you ever read Patricia Cornwell's Kay Scarpetta series, you can tell that I really like crime fiction. Anyway, did Michael go vegetarian? No, he's not 100% vegetarian, but generally speaking, like I won't cook meat in the house, so we don't.
But that's not something that she like lorded over me. She said if I wanted to cook meat, I could.
If you want it, you can.
But here's
do it.
my thing. Here's my thing about food. I'm not a foodie, and so I don't get that bent out of shape about what I'm eating as long as the consistency and everything, the texture is the same. On top of that, not to get too personal, but
oh God, I know what you're gonna say.
No. I'll keep it high level. All right. Red meat was starting to mess with me, and I got tired of being messed with. And as I started to remove things from my diet to try and figure out what the culprit was, it ended up being red meat and cured meats. And I got to tell you, I'm a lot happier when food isn't messing with me. So I'm totally fine to leave the memory of sausage pizza in the past. So I'm okay. I'm doing fine.
His mom's also vegetarian, so he's not completely unfamiliar with eating our vegetarian type food. So I try to be a decent cook regardless of meat or no meat. So
I just had chicken noodle soup today from a can.
That's true. He did.
So I'm not without, my poultry. What? I love fish and chips. You know that.
I do.
I do love some fish and chips.
That's good for you.
Favorite cereal as a child, Peter Venkman. That would be ooh, that's hard.
Count Chocula. It's not hard at all. Count Chocula and a Coke for breakfast every day.
What's my favorite sweetened cereal from? You've observed me eat them. What?
I don't know.
It's not Life.
I want to answer this other question while you think about it.
Question.
Sean says, Melinda, why did 9/11 change your law enforcement goal? Because I graduated the spring after September 11th, and the FBI was no longer looking for people with my particular set of skills, like to work on mass graves in Kosovo and stuff like that. They were more focused on people with Middle Eastern knowledge and knowing those languages and all that kind of stuff, because we were dealing with that whole thing. And so they basically waitlisted me, and I had a 9-month grace period before I'd start paying off my student loans. And guess what? Being waitlisted doesn't pay. So
Right.
I I had to find another career. So while I was working as a temp for UPS, weirdly, I was like making $9 an hour going, oh my God, I have a master's degree. So I went back to school again and became a nurse so that I could get a job. So that is my long, sad story. Monkey Boy says, Melinda, do you like Karen Slaughter books? No, I am not familiar with those, but probably would. Howie says, Melinda, how do you like nursing? Well, I'm no longer a bedside nurse. I liked a lot of parts about it. It was a very difficult job, and I have a ton of respect for my compatriots who are still at the bedside and are out there braving everything. I can't imagine how difficult that must be in so many ways. I'm still friends with a lot of nurses and on a lot of nursing boards, and so I see in detail a lot of what they're going through and just so much respect. I work in clinical research, so I have one of those cushy jobs where I sit in my house and try to manage like new therapies that are coming along. My company is one of the ones that's about to be approved, and this is public knowledge for the testing kits. So I still feel like we're making a difference. So that's exciting. But there's a lot of cool ways to be a nurse. So that's one of the cool things about it. Any good fish and chips places out where you live? Timothy Ward asks us.
Not really. Not really.
I mean, our favorite restaurant has a decent fish and chips.
Yeah, that's actually really good fish and chips. I will be the fish, the chips. I'm not as wild about over there. But
the chips are hard because they're so specific. I think.
Yeah,
like the chips
they're
over
not
there are
bad
different.
chips, but they're not. But the fish is great at Century House Tavern.
Century House Tavern is near where we live, and it's a great restaurant. I'm so sad to say that they've closed during all of this, but I can't wait till they reopen. We can go back as soon as they reopen. And,
Timothy, I don't think that's the place.
No, we didn't take you there. But
we will next time.
Michael, have you ever been to Gettysburg? I have.
I have not. I've been to Shiloh.
And I've also been to Antietam, which, holy crap, that place is eerie.
I've been to Shiloh, and I think I've been to a number of other Civil War battlefields, but I haven't been to Gettysburg. I've been to a lot more World War II sites than I have Civil War. Sad to say. Not sad to say. Just to say.
Let's see. People are still calling out Lucky Charms, Cinnamon Life, S'mores from the 80s, Frosted Flakes, Apple Jacks. Ooh, Apple Jacks.
Franken stuff. Someone's asking me about...
I love Kaboom.
Did someone ask me about Star Wars Follies again?
Yeah,
Seriously?
I skipped it.
Okay.
I didn't want to poke that bear. Chips, do you like crisp or floppy?
Oh, I like my chips crisp.
Me too.
I like them crisp, and I don't like them tiny. I like wide chips, like real chips.
Melinda, couldn't you get a job with your local PD as an investigator or something? I have looked into that. I would have to start over in my career now that I have 15 years of experience in my current career. So the pay difference would be significant. So that's why I haven't done that. But it is a great thought, and maybe when I retire, I might do something to help local law enforcement.
Eric, I thought that Dunkirk was a great movie from a technical standpoint, and I liked the way that Christopher Nolan tried to tell the story in a unique style. Is it my favorite World War II movie? No. Do I own it? Yes. Do I own it on 4K? Yes. Am I impressed with the way he made the movie? Absolutely. There's a lot to love about that film. It is not told in a way that makes it my favorite World War II film. My favorite World War II entertainment of all time so far is Band of Brothers. That is my favorite World War II story told on film.
Werewolf by Lunchtime says, I love malt vinegar on my fish and chips. Me too, although I don't eat fish, but I love to put the malt vinegar on my chips. And do you like thick or thin chips?
I answered that already. I told him I like
thick.
I
okay.
like thick chips.
Yeah.
Someone's asking, do you like Red Tails or Flyboys? I think I like Flyboys better than Red Tails, only because the biplanes of World War I is not a story that's often told. cheesy as that movie is in places, and that's the thing about Flyboys and Red Tails, is that they both end up being very cheesy in places. I saw both of them in the theater. I appreciate both of those movies, but I think Flyboys is probably the more interesting one for me, much in the same way that I revisit High Road to China, because the biplane stuff from World War I is not dealt with as much.
Sean says Ken Burns' The War is the most impactful documentary I've ever seen. I think The World at War is my favorite war documentary for sure. It's very long, but it's
narrated by
really
Laurence Olivier. Yeah. The World at War is really, really...
I bought it on DVD.
DVD, but now it's on Blu-ray.
Oh, man. Gotta update that.
I know.
Analog Toys, thank you for the super chat. He says, favorite UK chocolate bar? Spelled with a U. Good for you. I love seeing it that
there's
way.
There's a Cadbury's one. I had one while we were there in September. What is it? It's got a stack to it. It's like a wafer stack wrapped in chocolate with a thing. Oh, it's really good.
You know what? I want to come there to the UK and have somebody that's not him, who actually is a foodie and who loves candy, take me around and like show me the best chocolate bars and the best snacks and stuff, because I am all about that. I want to go on a food tour of the UK primarily focused on chocolate.
Simon says Battle of Britain is the best. I assume you mean movie. I own that movie. I love it. The only reason I put Band of Brothers above a movie like that is because Band of Brothers is not a summation with fictional characters. They are actually telling a story of real people in real scenarios from real battle reports and interviews. So that's why it edges out. I wish they would do that with Battle of Britain. I wish they would make a Battle of Britain movie that was as on point as Band of Brothers with modern technology. That's my dream. Double Decker. That's the one. I love the Double Decker. That's
I had that too. It is really good.
Yeah.
I had that over there.
Yeah.
Really, really good. Let's see. People are... Jody, thank you again. He says, Michael, whenever you get to NL,
Netherlands,
ping me and I'll take you to...
Oh, yeah, the bridge. The bridge at... Yes. I would love to see that, man. That'd be awesome. There's a whole movie about it.
Matt says, I'll show you, Melinda. Okay. I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah.
People are saying hi to Tony. Did you already know Tony's here?
I'm glad he's here. I told him that we'd be on for a while, so he didn't have to get up at 3 a.m. Yeah, Brian, I do like Tuskegee Airmen from HBO. I think it's a really solid film. I want to eventually own it on a high-def format. Let's see. Yeah, Double Decker is the best UK chocolate bar. That is right. The Double Decker's awesome.
Thanks. And then it says Wispa is also great. I think I have one of those too. Like, I literally went into I think we only went to one gas station convenience store thing, and I bought I was just literally going and buying all of them, and Michael started looking at me like, oh my God.
I just wasn't sure what you were doing.
Why? And I had all these little bags of weird chips. I had Doritos flavors that we don't have over here, and all these little different chips and all these candy bars, and he's looking at me like, good God. And I'm like, what? We're going to be here for 2 weeks, and we're going to be in the car, and I want to try all of these things. And
look,
so I put some of them back, but I was really bummed about it.
You didn't have...
Really bummed. If you're going to send me anything, I'm just saying send me all the chocolate. Or chips.
Wow.
Stuff that I can't get here. I am all about food from other countries, as long as it's vegetarian and preferably junky. Okay, not healthy things. Melinda, you mean crisps. Well, I am American. I apologize. So, you know what I'm saying. Crunchy, crunchy. Okay, Alan, thank you for the super chat. He says, Melinda, metalhead that you are, have you ever listened to Sabaton? Yes, and they're history-based metal. They're a very cool band. They're on YouTube and have a history channel too. Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the guy, God, his name just went right out of my head right now. The guy that did the Amazing Metal documentary, I believe he's Canadian as well. I could be wrong about that, but I think he is. It's called A Headbanger's Journey. Yell it out. Tell me if I'm wrong. I have got to get up to Canada, though, because you guys have some cool stuff up there. Wilson says Mr. Plinkett would be proud. I'm not sure what he'd be proud of, but I hope so. Melinda, how's your stock of European Kit Kats? Need me to send some more? And how's Michael's stock of proper cocoa?
We're good in that.
We're good. I think I still have a decent number of European Kit Kats. I do like the regular chocolate kind more than the pink kind, but those were an interesting experiment.
Yes, yes, I have read Spitfire, A British Love Story. Yes, I've read a good book.
Canadians do rock. You know, I dated a Canadian once. This is just a fun thing for me to just constantly bring up ex-boyfriends, but this was like in the 7th grade. But I lived in Alaska, so we had a ton of Canadians up there. So, you know, that whole accent is just hilarious to me. Banger TV, Sam Dunn. That's it. I love him. Is he Canadian? Yes, Melinda, you're correct. He went to York University, which is in Toronto. That guy, I remember when I saw that movie and I saw him, I was like, I wish I could meet that guy. He did all of the cultural anthropology stuff that I was so interested in at that time and still am with metal, and just sort of used our genealogical tree making abilities like we do in cultural anthropology to kind of break down heavy metal into all its different genres. I just love him. I think he does such a great job. So I'll shut up now, but I'm geeking out. Have you tried a UK curly whirly? No.
No, if I had one, it was years and years ago, and I don't remember.
But we did have the... Is that ice cream? What is that? Someone's saying... I don't know what that is, but I do know that you had that one kind of ice cream you loved when we were in the...
Yeah, Mr. Whippy.
That was actually quite good.
Mr.
I don't even like ice cream.
Mr. Whippy is amazing. I don't want to hear anybody say anything bad about Mr. Whippy.
Jonathan, thank you for the super chat. I think Michael just mentioned that he really thought the Tuskegee Airmen movie was quite good.
Yeah, the HBO one is quite good.
Man, this has descended into all kinds of amazing candy discussion. I love it. Melinda, what's your favorite Star Wars movie? My favorite Star Wars movie is Star Wars, the original 1977 Star Wars. I know Michael's is Empire. For me, Empire is like a half of a hair lower, but not much. I love Empire as well, but to me, it's hard to top the original just because it was the first one, and I think they did such a great job on that movie. Man, look at all this candy.
Yeah, everyone's saying Mr. Whippy. That's right, Mr. Whippy is the best.
Is the best. It is. I don't even like ice cream, and I was making fun of him for making such a big deal out of it when we were in England, and
we were in Windsor.
And he was like, "Oh my god!" And I was like, "Oh Jesus!" And so he had the thing, and I was like, "I want to try it," and he was like, handed it over to me, and then I was like, "You're gonna have to buy your own because I'm keeping this."
Yeah, I had to go back. I ended up having like 3 of them that day.
You did. Does that count the one that I had?
No.
Guts says, my dad used to have a Mr. Whippy van. At the end of the day, I would have leftovers. I don't think I ever lost that weight. Steve says, wow, that went fast. Did you like Big Trouble in Little China? Were there any toys?
I like Big Trouble in Little China. JSP, you have to download 4K 77 from a torrent. But you can also find people on eBay that sell a Blu-ray 1080p down convert of it on Blu-ray disc. But those are really the only 2 ways to get it. You either have to download it yourself in 4K and then watch it via a computer file, or you find someone who's put it on Blu-ray.
Carl, no, we don't have Lion bars here to my knowledge. It was one of the bars that I had to put back in the convenience store.
You didn't have to put anything back. You chose.
He was judging me. I could feel it. Judging me.
Nobody forced you to put anything back.
AL says, sorry, I don't really like candy. I'm a potato chip kind of gal. You know what? I love chips. I love chips so much, like, and not just the chip kind like what you're talking about, but like American chips, like in a bag, like crisps, like Doritos and tortilla chips. And I'm not as big on just plain potato chips, but I will eat those too. Like, I love a good salty crisp.
Leo, to answer your question, if you own Raiders of the Lost Ark on Blu-ray, from the original release, then everybody owns Crystal Skull because it was a 4-movie set. I know they had then re-released them all individually at some point, like a year later, but I wasn't about to wait around for that. I just wanted, the first 3, and so yeah, I have it.
Analog Toys, thank you very much for the super chat. He says, thoughts on Harrison Ford making a 5th Indiana Jones movie?
I hope it goes well.
I hope he doesn't break a hip.
I hope the story's better than 4.
I hope the door doesn't fall down on him again on this movie.
Yeah. I always hope for the best, but I always say I'm not going to place my bets on things like this, but I hope for the best.
50s thing or 80s thing? Do you have a favorite? I think you got to give respect to the 50s thing, but I did enjoy the 80s thing. The movie.
Oh, right, The Thing. Sorry.
Marmite. Have you had Marmite, Michael?
No, I know of it. I haven't had it.
All this food talk. I'm going to have a snack. It's a cash grab, he says. This 5th movie.
Oh yeah, George is not wrong. It's definitely trying to get one more out of Harrison Ford before they figure out how they're going to remonetize this franchise. They were almost Krull toys, Saturday Morning Fan. They've just surfaced with some prototypes. They were almost Krull toys, but they didn't quite make it. So
I know that we still have about 400 people watching, but it's been 2.5 hours. So I'm thinking we might want to wrap it up, possibly. What do you think? No?
Wrap it up, fuzzball. Yeah, we can if you want to go watch Night Court and...
I mean, I want to watch Night Court and chill.
Is that a euphemism?
No.
Okay.
I mean, maybe. I'm going to eat candy and maybe make some popcorn. And, ooh, yeah, I will sing the Tater Skin songs. Tater skins got baked potato appeal because they're made with potatoes and skins that are real.
No, I don't own any prototypes in my collection, no.
All right, guys. Well, all this food talk, I hope it's not making you too hungry so that you go and eat all of your grocery supply, but I'm thinking that I'm going to have to, maybe make a cake or something tasty as a dessert because I do love to bake, and I've got this great air popper for popcorn, and probably make some of that and watch some Night Court, and I hope you guys are having finding fun ways to stay entertained. I've got a really cool Star Wars jigsaw puzzle that I think we might try to put together later. So that'll be a fun thing to do. And just try to learn some new hobbies, and all that stuff that you keep putting off till later when you retire, you could do it now. And if you want some cool tips like knitting and crocheting, that's a cool thing to do. Jody, thanks again for the super chat. He says, go chill, guys, and I thank you for such a long live chat to brighten our days. We hope that this has brightened you guys' days a little bit. And, go watch an Indiana Jones movie.
Yeah, go watch something with a rollicking score and a lot of action and a charismatic leading character.
That's right.
Yeah. And that means that, unfortunately, there's no Tomb Raider movie to watch yet. So, oh well.
All right, guys. Well, I guess we're calling it.
We're going to call it because it's been 2.5 hours and we're hungry. So,
well, now we are, for sure.
Now we are talking about the food thing. Scott, yes, we just finished the R2-D2. The video will be out tomorrow. It's on Patreon right now, but it'll be out for everybody tomorrow. So, all right. Well,
are you going to go shut it off?
Oh, yeah, that's right. I have to do the shutting off because Tim isn't here because of the quarantine.
We miss our crew, and we can't wait till this is over and we can have a big party. So that's another thing you can do is plan what fun activity you're going to do as soon as this all ends and we all safely come out the other side. So until then, stay safe, and we'll see you on the next one.